form and give it to the finance director. The committee chair will recognize those persons wishing to speak, and any questions should be addressed through the committee chair. Towards the end of tonight's meeting or at next Thursday's meeting, we will have public hearing on state shared revenues with time for public comment on the use of shared revenues. I would like to ask David Bodway, the city's finance director, if we have received any comments.
I have not received any comments. Is there anybody in the crowd that wants to give testimony? No? Okay. No
Okay,
comments.
I will close the public comments. We'll move on to new business, and I will now turn it over to the city manager, Craig Sheldon.
Thanks for being here again tonight, and I'll turn it over to David so we can get right to work.
So we left off with the library, and the first department we're going to start with is the field house and sports recreation. I'll give everyone a few seconds to get here, and will you be presenting that? Okay.
So this is a pretty small department. The one thing that I am happy to report on is our leagues and our rentals at the field house are up. It's been a little bit of a slow return from COVID, but we have more leagues signed up this spring than we have in years, so that's good news. And we are also anticipated to bring in more revenue. If you don't mind clicking to the next slide. We have already received close to $150,000 for this year, and we had projected less than that, so we're excited about that. So things are headed in the right direction in the field house. Any questions specifically? Yes.
What is 150 compared to like pre-COVID? Is that about where we were, or is it still down?
I believe I'd have to look back, but that's about where we were. I think that's close to the highest that we've been in revenues over there. The other thing that I will say is we've just looked at our fees, and we will be raising some of our fees this year. Some of them are right exactly where we think that they need to be, and not all of them are going to be raised, but we do anticipate on raising some fees if approved by the council.
Okay. And so the 150 also, if you had to guess, what percentage of full-time is this? I mean, can we fit more leagues, or is it capacity?
In the evenings, we are near capacity.
Okay.
Where we have the capacity is during the daytime. However, we're very limited during the daytime because of all of the activity that's happening at Public Works over there right now. And there's literally really not enough parking for even staff, so it's very difficult to bring in activities.
Okay, great, thank you.
And I think there might be another slide on this, but what this does not include is the turf rental up at Snyder Park. And this is where the salaries for that show up. However, the revenue does not show up. And I believe that we were about 70,000 this year. Does that sound correct, David?
Yeah, in the following couple of years, it's actually that the revenues recorded in the general construction fund for the Recreation Sports League, and that's going to be about 85,000. And we've been setting that money aside for the turf replacement projects that are going to go on here in the next few years. So we're well over $600,000 set aside, if not more. I'd have to check that figure.
Maybe a conversation for another day, but doesn't it feel like this should just be rolled into Parks and Rec? Like it feels like a very kind of small department that could just be part of the Parks Department.
Yeah, and that's why even in the budget
Especially
book,
with the way you're swapping the money around.
Well, and I mean, it's I guess it's really kind of an accounting thing, but we used to keep them separate because we had the school district, and there was reimbursements and expenditures that went along with all of that. And then we decided, well, we might as well combine them, at least in the book, and Lance's time is split between indoor and outdoor for this. And then we don't truly have a Parks and Recreation. I mean, we could call it that, but we don't have another fund that we just call Parks and Recreation because all of the maintenance end of things comes through Public Works.
I do like one positive of keeping it separate is we have a better understanding for that facility what our revenue intake is and our costs are.
Well,
if we blend
revenue
it, Well,
The costs are,
costs are blended, but ideally, we should understand that as we move forward, you know, think about our
maybe I'm
budgets.
thinking about the difference between funds versus departments, which don't have to necessarily be one-to-one. But some of it's like sausage making behind the scenes, it doesn't necessarily have to match to how we think about it from a budgetary perspective.
Yeah, and the only reason I bring it up is like, I think about the Art Center, and are we break even? Are we subsidizing
Yeah.
it? You know, and just understanding that, because if we do have to, in future years, move things around and contemplate cuts, you don't want to cut in an area that's a revenue
So then maybe
maker.
we should do the same here with the labor then, and parcel it out to where it belongs instead of having.
What do you mean? Because this is Lance's time for the outdoor leagues, right?
Correct,
And on the other slide was his time at the field house.
correct.
So it is split. Am I missing what
Oh,
you're
I
trying to say
thought-
there?
I thought I was told, I
Kristen
thought you just said the revenue
all
was
labor
here,
was
but
in one.
all the revenue, all the labor's here, but some of the revenue is in the parks.
The revenue for the outdoor fields goes into the turf replacement fund. So that's not showing up right here. It says zero. Well, there's no revenue showing. So,
Oh, I
Go
was going
ahead.
to say, and I could point that out when we get to the general construction fund.
I think this just goes back to my point of.
So what we
funds
don't-
versus
Yeah.
the way we display and talk about
Right.
things.
right. Yeah, so we don't mix it in with the field house, but it doesn't really show for what
Yeah, I
this
guess
department
here it
is.
doesn't show.
It's
our-
just expenses.
are we
Yeah.
upside down or are we not upside down on
Yeah.
this, you know? But if our revenue is more, we're in good shape, but.
Yeah.
And I could always, for the future years, just
Put a
add a little
footnote.
note there, because you got to be careful of your general construction fund specific purposes. You start putting operational expenses in there, there's some accounting rules that we have to follow, so.
A little asterisk with a footnote at the bottom that
Yeah.
says $80,000 revenue in the construction fund or something.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, do the fees essentially 100% cover the replacement of the field, or is it 80% towards that and some of the rest goes to general? Is it, do we know that, or?
Are you asking
I-
what
I-
percentage of the fees go to
Yeah, like,
the
do we
fund
set
to
the
replace the
fee
fee?
to replace it, or are we gonna say, yeah, we got 800,000 in it, but it's gonna cost us 2 million to do, and so we got a surprise when it comes time to do? Or do we say, oh, we've got 2 million in the fund, it was only 1 million, we've actually, the parks made us money by our fees, and we can use that for other things, you know what I mean? I'm trying to figure out, is it a break even, or are we actually making money to rent to leagues using our fields?
I would have to say it's going to be pretty much almost a break even, because is there 3 different turfs we have to replace? Yeah, there's multiple.
Okay.
But that doesn't include the labor to run those. I mean, that's taking all the fee revenue toward it.
Yeah.
Not accounting for the cost to operate it.
Yeah,
So in that case, it's not breaking.
that's true.
What are the 3 different?
Soccer field, the baseball field. Oh, and the indoor field house. So we have 3.
Yeah.
So basically what we're saying is that the fees that we get for our outdoor leagues or rentals of the fields go into the construction fund. So our general fund is covering these expenses,
Correct.
Except for the field house fees.
except for the field house, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
outside, okay.
I mean, I don't know how other counselors feel about it, but I feel like, with an asset like that, it feels like, are leagues not gonna come to us because we're charging an extra, $100 a team? I don't know, but, it feels like a way that we could use it as an asset. There's fewer places that I've ever visited in the area that are prettier to play soccer at than Snyder Park. I mean, it's a very beautiful place, so it just seems, I don't know. Feels like we ought to be able to make that an asset for the city as well, but.
Well, it sounds like that's already part of the
Yeah,
plan.
and we are, I don't want to say at the higher end, but we did look, Greg and I took a look a couple weeks ago, and we're sitting probably where we should be for Snyder Park, and it is rented quite well. We don't charge quite as much for the indoor field house because there are competitors out there down the road that have more amenities than we do. So we feel that we need to price ourselves accordingly.
Okay.
And are still trying to attract new teams in there.
All right.
I didn't mean to take us down a rabbit hole. My only reason I made the comment I did was I think of it in terms of we have cost centers and we have revenue centers. nice for all of our revenue centers to understand what percentage is covering operation and capital improvement of the fees and what percentage is getting subsidized, just so we understand that. And when I say subsidized, meaning it's general fund contribution. So it'd just be nice to know that information as we move forward. However, that could be a side spreadsheet, just something that kind of shows us that.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the gist of what I was trying to get at it too, is being able to really clearly identify revenue versus cost on each.
Department, each
I don't know
amenity.
if I want to say department, but I think they don't necessarily cleanly tie to funds, right? From an accounting perspective, but the way you want to think about them from trying to balance your budget might be different than how you book them in an accounting way. So that's all.
It's like each entity, each
Yeah.
kind of thing, yeah.
Any other questions?
A lot of conversation
This one
for a
is
small
really
department.
Yeah.
It jinxed us.
This one is really stupid, but can you play pickleball in the field house?
You could if you laid a different floor down.
But you can't have
But I don't think, I'm not a pickleball player,
Nor am I.
but you need,
Okay.
you need the bounce, right? I mean, yeah. You
No
don't-
turf.
it's not like badminton where it's in the air the whole time,
it's
so.
like racquetball in a way.
It's like tennis on a smaller level.
Tennis, but 10 times louder.
Yeah,
But cute clothes, right?
yeah.
I'm always
In theory, if you had space, which we don't, if you had space indoors with a concrete floor, you could play pickleball.
Yeah.
So where are they playing it?
Snyder Park.
Snyder Park.
Outside.
Yeah, on a tennis court.
On the
So-
tennis
We've converted one of the tennis courts to pickleball, to two pickleball.
Okay, so we do cover
Yeah.
that sport.
And then there
Yeah.
are two additional temporary ones that you have to bring out net. So they're,
You can use the tennis courts for pickleball as well. The lines are there, so you have to bring a portable net.
Which a lot of people have.
And it is louder
I
than
have one in the
tennis.
back of my car.
Much
That's what
louder.
it's
Do any of the schools cover that?
No, it's a city facility.
Or just, okay, I'm
Yeah.
Yeah.
just
We,
curious.
at one point last year, we did talk to the school about potentially converting some of their courts over by the old middle school that's now Hawks View. But I think that there were some neighbors that immediately said they didn't want the noise. But
Wait, to be clear, the city talked to them?
no.
Okay, I was
No,
gonna say, I don't think
I think we were just saying, hey, I think it was at one of our joint sessions. We just said, hey, do you guys want, and they came back and said they didn't want the noise. It wasn't an official thing, but
I guess
anyway.
we go into close their courts because of noise.
Yeah.
Because they're too close to neighborhoods.
It's a big discussion at Parks Board again right now.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Are we turning down daytime opportunities, or are we just not getting asked anymore because people know we're not available?
At the field house? From time to time, but we're not asked that often. There's a few homeschool rentals and a few things that we still accommodate, but mainly it's just been since COVID, we haven't brought back, like, for example, the preschool, indoor preschool playtime that we used to have. Okay, this section is events and volunteers. So the few things that I wanted to highlight really quick on events or volunteers is that we've exceeded our projections of volunteer hours by 35%, which was fantastic. And we've also been successful at launching an Adopt a Trail program. This is something that has been on our list for several years. So with the opening of Cedar Creek Trail, that was a great opportunity to do that. And we now have 4 trail segments that can be adopted. This is similar to Adopt a Road. You can adopt a trail
Have they
instead.
been adopted yet?
Yes.
Nice.
And in fact, we have an adoptee,
Sure.
adoptor in the room.
Are there other segments still available to be adopted?
Sounds like
I don't
very
believe
much
that
like
there
existing.
are. Yeah, I think they're all full.
We have a lot of trails in this town. We can identify
Yeah,
some more.
we can expand it, but this was just where we started. I think we had
Was it?
talked about it, but
Okay.
yeah, he gave us some encouragement along the way to get things moving, which was helpful.
Well done, all around.
Really, the main revenue that comes into this department is from sponsorships for events, which is Music on the Green and Movies in the Park, Music on the Green being our biggest one. We are doing a bit better in sponsorships. They had been down quite a bit for a number of years, and they seem to be coming back. Personnel services is just the staff time that it takes to put on those events, but no changes there.
How much are the sponsorships?
How much in total?
No, how much?
It depends on the different level. It can be anywhere from $200 to $5,000.
Okay, 200 to 5,000.
Yeah. So our presenting sponsor is 5,000, but like a neighborhood sponsor would be 200.
And can an individual do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do the booths have to get rented out too?
The booths come as part of the sponsorship package. So at a certain level, you get a booth included in your package.
What about some food vendors?
The food vendors, we get a percentage of the proceeds that they bring in. And then, so that's basically, if they do well, we do well, but we're not penalizing them for being there, if that makes sense.
So a spin off of that question, the only booths that are there are the ones that are part of the sponsorship?
Correct.
That might be a revenue opportunity.
It is, however, we're usually full. Yeah.
Is the increase basically in personnel services each year is almost $25,000? Is that just the increase in wage, just standard?
That's just the,
PERS,
correct.
COLAs, wages?
Yeah, we have,
Spending more hours.
we're not spending more hours, and we haven't increased our FTEs at all. And this also includes public works time, so they charge to this department when they're doing the events. So it's just the cost of doing business.
Yeah.
And could that be a volunteer activity?
We have volunteers down there, but a lot of it is actual physical labor, setting things up. And then we have volunteers that come down during the events and help out. But that's it. Shanda. So Shanda's here this evening, and so she's just going to highlight a few things real quick and see if there's any questions that you have on the Arts Center.
Hi, nice to see you all. So as you know, this is our 10th anniversary of the Arts Center, which is very exciting. February 28th, 2015 was the first time people were in there, so we celebrated that. And again, with 10 years, my focus is the continued viability and health and rental ability of the center and make sure it stays a treasured community asset. So a couple of things were interesting. Audiences are slightly up to the events that we produce ourselves, up 10% across the board. Summer program revenue for ArtSmart summer camps was up 9% from our record-breaking year. Definitely feels like people are coming back. We had 25 brand new renters utilizing our space in this current fiscal year 24-25. And a lot of those were people who may not have known that our space is so multi-use before. So it's always nice to get the word out that it's a very rentable space for corporate events, meetings, birthdays, all kinds of things.
So this is out of the 86, 25 were new? Is that the right metric or roughly?
Yeah, so we're pretty much at capacity with how many weekends are used. For instance, this current fiscal year, 90% of our weekend dates are gone. We had 10 Saturdays available all year. So a lot of those are new people to us. So people recur.
Yeah,
And then, 25 of those are new this year.
that's great. 10 Saturdays though, you got opportunity, come on.
10 One of them is the one right after Christmas. So, yeah.
Somebody's gotta want that.
I know.
Holiday party.
I know.
Yeah, there you go.
No, it's pretty nice though. It's like the Saturday after Thanksgiving, Saturday after Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are
It's
the
true. But it's nice to be full. It's nice to be busy. And then, I guess those are my highlights. We are reviving our annual gala tradition this year, September 27th. So really excited to have an energized Friends of the Sherwood Center for the Arts again. And that will be hopefully a revenue-causing annual event again. So we're just continuing to be really conservative and try to offer really excellent service. As you know, most of our renters are from outside of Sherwood. So we have people coming as far as Gladstone and Southeast Portland and Beaverton and Wilsonville. So that is rental clientele that we hope to continue to serve.
Question on the revenue from the gala. Just want to make sure that's clear. That isn't revenue to the city. That's revenue to the Friends that helps like with scholarships and stuff, or what else?
It's revenue to the Friends who then can use it as needed. So if there was a big need at the Art Center that was not, it was unexpected or an opportunity,
like
then the Friends could
Police Foundation
fund that.
Yeah,
Yes,
help.
similar to the Police Foundation.
Awesome.
And when is that event?
September 27th. Yeah.
Question,
Yeah.
and I feel like I should know the answer to this, but the fiscal year 24 revenue is 856, and 25 is 529. Goes down.
I think there was that the, yeah, you have this, there was a bump.
I don't know if you recall, in 2024 was when finally a decision was made on the transient lodging tax. We had that money built up for a few years. And then now that we're getting back down to normal levels where the years hasn't built up in that TLT fund, so.
So you kind of, if you look at 23 and 24 averaged,
Oh, yeah.
probably 22 as well, or whatever, so that makes more sense. Okay.
That's a good question.
So it was like a big blob of money that
Big,
came in.
almost like one time, and then now the transient lodging tax at just normal levels.
So another thing that I do want to mention on revenues is we did go through a fairly robust review of rental fees and are making adjustments that are going to be proposed in the fee schedule in June. And most of them are 20 to 30% that we feel like the market can take, and we're still going to put us right where we need to be. For most of these rentals, people actually make reservations, can make them up to 18 months in advance. So even though we're making those increases now, it may not impact somebody for
You'll honor the
18
price
months.
of
Somebody
what
who's
they
already reserved.
exactly.
yes,
If you,
that's
yeah, exactly.
We're giving our renters, who are mostly small businesses and nonprofits, plenty of time to prepare for that. But just, yeah, know that we are right-sizing our rates, comparing.
We've done that before.
Yeah, this one is a little bit more pointed, I guess, with wanting to keep the health of the center.
Do we just compare it with other centers? and
Compare it to
see where-
Chehalem and Walters, and even the Reeser and PCC. So we're below rate for 3 of those. So. No, it's not in. It's not projected yet because it's not going to trickle down immediately.
Well, council would have to approve.
Yeah,
Yeah.
council needs
You
to
have to
approve it.
approve
If
the
it's
rates.
approved, we anticipate, I think it was about another 20,000 potentially in year one that we would see. So it would be gradual.
47,000 the next year if rates hold.
Is there some built-in attrition to that projection? Like rates are going to go up, maybe we lose a few bookings, but overall we still go up because our price per booking is better.
Yep.
Yeah, 90% is a really high booking rate, so I suspect we have some room to raise some rates.
Yeah.
That's great.
Is, so of the projected, I got off the page, sorry. Projected 598 for year one, how much of that's TLT and how much of that is ticket revenue?
I believe it's 100, is it 150,000 in TLT?
Yeah, 150 or 155. I can get that number to you while you're.
Just an aside for future budgets, on a lot of these departments that have more than one revenue stream, more than one primary revenue stream, it might make sense, just like we have at the bottom, we have categories for expenses, it might make sense to have categories for revenue.
155.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Any other questions?
Great job.
Thank you.
Keep the good work. Comes another exciting one.
Maya is here this evening to talk to us about Senior Center.
Hello, I'm Maya Martin Burbank. I'm the manager of the Marjorie Stewart Senior Community Center. And we've had another great year. We're constantly in growth mode ever since we were let back into the building after COVID. It's been nothing but growth. So that's a good thing, but it's also a hard thing for our staff and our volunteers. So we have started our shuttle program, the Sherwood Senior Shuttle. It's been wrapped this year, so it's beautiful. If you see it out running around, it's lovely, identifiable. People know what it's for and who it's for. We've actually increased the number of calls and applications since that was wrapped, so I'm very partial to it. We've had 945 rides May 1st to May 1st, so it's being utilized. It's being more and more utilized every day. Instead of taking 1 or 2 people, we're taking 4 or 5 people at a time. Always looking for volunteer shuttle drivers.
Say, remind me, is that all volunteer
It's
drivers?
all volunteer shuttle drivers. So the only time is if we have somebody call out sick, and then Kelly or I will step in.
You
And
don't need a CDL for that, right?
You don't, no.
It's just a regular van.
It's just a
They do
regular
go through
van.
a training, though.
Yeah, you do have a training that we partner with Ride Connection to offer, which is so great. It's a great training. Like, their training out of all of them is my favorite.
Do
shows
we do
what
any
we
checks on driving record?
We do, yeah. Yeah, we do background checks on driving record as well as criminal record and all that as well. And we have a meeting once a year where we go over, like, make sure you are following all the rules. Yeah, so that's very popular. We've had over 9,000 activity registrations and participations over the last year. We're almost at capacity with the number of activities that we are offering every day. The rooms are pretty much full. We have things going on pretty much all the time, and we're maxing out in a lot of our activities. So it's very positive. We served just under 17,000 meals last year, which is a 9% growth from the year before. And yeah, we are kind of getting to that point where we're doing as much as we can for as many people as we can with the space and the personnel that we have. So I think that's a positive. People are reporting back that they love what they're doing. They are so grateful for the classes, the meals, everything. Dominic continues to make delicious meals every day. We have a new program starting next year. It's the only new program that we're going to be really doing with, again, partnering with Pacific University to offer social worker interns to help with housing needs, transportation, medical ombudsmanship, and kind of that support that a lot of our older adults don't have, especially if they don't have friends or family in the area. So they'll be able to help with that and also help with the older adult mental health programming. They'll be able to take quite a bit off of my plate and kind of help with that gap that we have between staff and amount of work needing to be done. So that's going to be a great program. And we've interviewed some great students that are very excited. We've got one picked out, looking for another. And I love having those interviews come in because it's these young kids that are just so stoked to get going and to help people.
Does it fulfill like something they need as a requirement?
Yeah,
Or type
it's
internship
we
type
are
thing?
we are not allowed to pay them. It's part of their education, so they have to get a certain number of hours depending on where they are in their bachelor's, master's degree per year. So
Very cool.
yeah, it's mutually beneficial.
Awesome. So, did you have something? Rock, paper, scissors. On the revenue side, kind of
Yes.
with the trends in the last area, part of that is money we get from the county. I think it's
You're right. The Older Americans Act funds.
yeah. So, what are all the revenue streams, and
Sure.
and how much is coming from the county?
So in the past, we've had a $120,000 offer from the county for our meal program. We're not quite sure where we're going to hit this year because we just haven't gotten the contract signed. I'm told it's going to be $108,000 for this following fiscal year. After that, y'all keep your fingers crossed for us.
120 down to 108.
Correct.
And what is the county saying the reason for the reduction?
A reduction in funding from the federal government. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not the across the board cuts.
It is.
Well, the county
it's
has
not
a
the
budget
county
deficit.
Oh, it's not the county. No,
Okay.
it's
It's all
yeah, just the
federal
amount that the
programs.
lump sum that they get. They're having to reduce their amount that they're giving
I'm
out.
always a little suspicious with the county that they're reallocating internally, so that's kind of why I'm asking the
Oh.
question. But,
Yeah,
Okay.
that's outside of my knowledge base. We had $30,000 in donations towards meals. That's up from the projected $24,000. So that was another revenue income stream. Yeah, and then we have like sprinkling of smaller grants, which I believe comes up to about $12,000.
And rentals.
And rentals.
How
Yeah.
often does it get rented?
We're rented at least half of every weekend of the month, although recently it's been most weekends we've been rented. The evening
Every Friday
rentals.
morning.
Was that?
Every
Friday
Friday
mornings.
morning. Rotary.
And in the evenings, we've had 2 ongoing rentals, and we are adding another one next year.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, and then we have a bunch of different companies that will rent out for meetings and stuff like that on kind of a once-by-once basis. And we actually do have rentals on Christmas and Thanksgiving because people are hosting their Christmas and Thanksgiving meals. Yeah,
Oh, God.
they'll rent and they'll rent in the kitchen and cook and then have their
Good
meals.
space if you have a big family or
Right?
something. I mean,
Let the kids just run around. It's fine.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
this
for the
is
rentals.
another area that we are also making some recommendations on some rental fee adjustments.
Did the working on support. So my question or comment, I guess, going back to the metrics page, this is really more for Craig and Kristen, and this would apply not just to senior center, but arts, library, parks, across the board. Like, I'd really love to see unique individuals in these metrics. Like 17,000 meals. Okay, great. That's a great number. Is that 100 people? Is that 500 people? Is that 1,000? I don't know.
It's on
Right.
average.
And I know, so you know this, so like,
Thank
why isn't it
you.
on the page, right? Yeah. What's the number?
Space. We serve about 72 meals a day. That's the average.
And, yeah, okay. So, but we still don't know how many unique, does everybody get a meal every day? Is it always the same 72 people?
I have about 572, 74.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody passed away. On our regular rotation list of people who regularly have meals.
So in some cases, I think we have these numbers. We're just not showing them. In other cases, I know they're harder. And not obviously every program you get that. But I think there are ways, and especially with a lot of these stuffs are in computers, so we can make lists and we can dedupe them and understand like unique individuals served across a lot of these different programs that we run, which to me is a much more meaningful number than 17,000.
So what you're saying is if one person ate 17,000 meals, it's probably not a great program?
Yeah, I would say that. And I'm not saying that's what's happening.
No, I
But
know.
we're serving 570, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, and actually that's
534
the great
Christmas
number.
cards.
That would be like,
Yeah.
wow, awesome. Like
Yeah.
that puts a lot more context to
And
it.
here,
to me.
that's,
Yeah.
that would be an easy one to track because they have to register individually. So
Yeah.
a lot of the programs, people are just showing up if it's free.
Versus the old
Across-
center.
It's like a door
Yeah,
count.
or
Like
Right.
door counts are meaningless. I want unique. Did I walk through the door 100 times, or did 100 different people walk through the door? That's a
Right.
very different thing. Obviously, not always easy to get.
Yeah, and we have people that come to all of our activities, and we have people that come to like one thing a year. They come to get their taxes done, or they come to one of our legal classes or something
Yeah.
like that. Although we're really good at converting that to multiple.
Yeah, it's kind of like the impact, right? What is the impact on the
Yeah.
city as a whole?
We have 20,000 people. How many people are we impacting
Yeah.
with each program? So it's
Yeah.
like,
And
we start
especially,
looking
and
at
then with this one, it would be, how many, Sherwoodians are we impacting? But some of the other ones like parks or the field house, we are trying to draw from the whole area, right? We're trying to say, hey, we want Sherwood, but we'll take money from everywhere, right? For if we can fill it up. So
Take money
as
from
long as
everywhere, no matter what. Even
well, right, but what I don't want is I don't want the elderly not able to get in for lunch because other people are coming and, You know what I mean?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
And we're in the fee schedule that I'm hoping you guys will approve. We have that $35 membership fee for non-Sherwood residents to kind of help offset that number for what the city of Sherwood residents are contributing.
Is that like
Yeah.
a monthly fee or annual?
Annual.
Annual.
Oh.
How does that compare to other centers that are serving our older population?
It's used by some facilities, not by all, and it's on the low side. And for introducing it for the first time, I wanted to kind of start somewhere like that and see what the uptake is, and see how that impacts our overall donation amounts, to see if people come to the conclusion that they're paying that, so they don't need to donate towards the meal or something like that. So I kind of want to test the waters before I go whole hog.
What's the average, or do you have an idea of how many non-Sherwood residents?
You know, I don't have that breakdown. Yeah. I can try to pull a report on active to see if it'll tell me.
But you know, because
Yeah, I know just from talking to people, but I wouldn't want to jump to a conclusion. Yeah.
Thank you.
What is the age considered for senior for
60.
some of you? I am not.
There's no shame in being a senior.
You're in that
It's a
too.
great place to be.
I thought it was 55, and I thought, oh, next year I'm on that.
You're like, I'm coming for
I've got a
that.
few more years yet.
Today was croque monsieur. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's fine. Welcome.
Great job.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Budget Committee. Rich Saller, Public Works. Looks like we're going to start off with fleet and equipment. So, fleet and equipment is responsible for all of the police cars, heavy equipment, small equipment that we use on a daily basis here to support the city. One thing I'd like to point out as far as a metric that we're improving upon is our preventive maintenance work orders. So that's where we're identifying those needs, those PMs, to make sure we're ahead of those before something gets to a failure. So we've been working on that to spend our time more wisely and make the dollar go further.
I just want to pass along a compliment. One of my neighbors pinned me down because their water meter cover was cracked, and they called it in, and your crew was out there the next morning and fixed it. And they were amazed.
Good.
Thought that was really
Well, we like to hear about that level of service. We try to provide that. As far as expenses, personnel services is pretty much consistent. You'll see that cost allocations and capital outlay will change from year to year depending on the schedules that we have for replacement of some of our vehicles and equipment that we have. Cost allocation is a credit back to the department. It is, yeah. So if we're working on police cars or piece of equipment in the water fund, city hall, those types of things, we credit back into the fleet budget.
Remind me of the revenue that we get in a fleet budget.
So the revenue that we get is mostly surplus. So we actually will sell the cars. I do want to note in 2026, there's a pretty good jump there. A few years ago, we purchased some large piece of equipment, a bucket truck, to support our broadband activity, and also a fairly large dump truck. So those resales will be much larger than we consistently have on a regular basis.
We're selling those this year?
We'll be, yes, we will be putting those on.
Don't need them anymore?
We do not need them anymore. They have been replaced.
Oh, we've been.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's the
So
part
yes, they have been
That's the part I
replaced.
was trying to.
Yeah.
long
So-
fiber over Parrot Mountain. That was really good.
Can I ask a quick question? Is on page 47 in the budget, the capital outlay of the fleet replacement, is that the capital outlay that's listed here in your fleet and equipment?
Page over my back. What page was that?
47?
In the budget.
Yeah, the actual budget document.
I don't think I have that.
so in 47, this is for all departments where you have IT mixed in there, some fleet, some public works, so yeah.
So that's their capital outlay here?
Yeah.
Got it, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we do have a street vehicle, water vehicle, those types of things as well, coming into this fund.
I just, on the revenue side, we received a grant last year for $45,000 for the evidence van. We purchased the evidence van this year. We have the outfitting in next year's budget. You'll see that where it says evidence van, but we don't get reimbursed that revenue until we're completed with the project. So that's part of that $51,000 you see there. That's why it's so high.
And that FEMA grant was on again, then it was off again, and now it's on again, right?
It's on again.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
And so wait, so we're not outfitting the van until next year? Are we not able to use it until it's outfitted? It's just sitting in a parking lot somewhere?
We actually just got it. We can't get it in to the actual company to actually outfit what the police want in it until after June 30th. So if you don't budget for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's not, so when you say next year, you mean like the beginning of this
June-
next
July
budget?
1st.
Yeah. Perfect, okay.
Yeah,
I'm like, I
fiscal
don't
year.
want it sitting around for a year. Okay.
So we are having that problem with police cars as well. So outfitting of those, that's very specialized tasks that we do. We use a company that through competitive bidding, we've also checked it with some other vendors in the area as well. So other police departments, fleet departments are experiencing the same concern and issue with being able to get those pieces of equipment back out in the field after purchase. So it is taking upwards of 4 months, 5 months to be able to outfit those vehicles.
What's the normal life of the evidence van?
The what?
What would the normal life of an evidence van?
It's a new piece of equipment for us. So I would 10 to 15 years. Yeah. So on the larger piece of equipment, generally that is what we use for a replacement.
Will it need to be updated on like every 2 years or 3 years or every year, 6 months?
Updated, what do you mean?
To bring it up to compliance with what an evidence van should be like.
Technology in it or whatever.
Whatever it takes.
Not necessarily. The update would be just equipment, not necessarily
So, Rich, question on that, while we're on that page. A Toro zero-turn mower is $80,000. Is that a typo? I would expect it to be like $10,000. David?
There's two of them in there.
So it's $47,000 or 43?
Approximately.
I need to see what the heck one of these things looks
I
like.
say we
Oh
have
my
the
God.
police ride the Toro motor, 2 for 1.
Yeah.
I only mention that because I have an uncle who bought one recently, and it was a high-end model and spent like $12,000.
It was a government.
Yeah. So
Well, that's why I'm
Yeah.
asking. Should we just
Gotta
go
go
to a
commercial.
Toro store?
these are fairly large mowers. That we put in about 3,000 hours on these pieces of equipment. But yeah, they do a lot of work out there for us.
How many
They-
years does that last?
I think I want to say we put between 300 or 400 hours a year on a piece of equipment.
Well, it could be 9, 10 years.
Yeah.
8 to 10 years.
I was going to say 7 to 10, yeah. I just, there is a typo in year 2. The police cruiser is 94,000. It actually is 84,000. So I do want to make that clarification.
So it's less than a mower, which is good.
All right.
Less than 2 mowers.
They can go back to the car.
Two mowers
Cruiser
or a
is the
police
same
car.
cost as
What do
a
you want?
lawnmower.
Things are not getting cheaper.
And that's about the increases we've been seeing for police vehicles roughly, so.
Any other questions on fleet and facilities or equipment? Moving into facility.
When I can come test and drive a mower.
For a whole afternoon up at Schneider Park.
Yeah.
2 times a week.
Got your volunteer, Rich.
Yeah, there we go.
I was going to say, let's up those volunteer hours. Let's make it a new thing.
Moving into facilities, I just wanted to note that, a task that staff does on a regular basis is set up this room, and we do have a lot of use of our facilities, so staff continues to meet those requests that come in through various departments to be able to make sure the rooms are ready. And then also OSHA violations, 0 is always good there for our facilities.
Very good.
So personnel costs are consistent with the rest of the increases for the city. Material and services has dropped. We had some fairly large projects this year that we completed. The carpet, the PD, we had an elevator lift. Over at Moorback House, we had windows at the Moorback House and a few other large projects. So that number does change depending on our asset plan. Any questions on facilities? I do want to mention one thing on facilities. We are implementing some efficiency measures. This next year, we do have phase 2 of the police department with the HVAC controls over there at the facility.
Is that gonna control the main room from being bipolar? I mean, it goes from like hot and then 10 minutes later it's freezing,
Yeah,
and then it's 10 minutes later it's hot again.
Right. So we've done that at this facility here over the years, and we're doing that there to help manage the equalize the system better. Yeah. Okay. Parks maintenance. We're proud of our parks and how we are able to maintain them to support the community. We haven't added any parks recently. Reservations continues to go up. People are seeing the value of our facilities. We do have a few capital projects that we're doing with resealing of the basketball courts and painting of them, and then resurfacings of the Snyder Park baseball courts as well. Those are showing considerable wear. Then we have a trail over at Oregon Trail. Repave that path this coming year.
When will this take into account the Langer Park next year?
July 1st, there's portions that we're already doing that's been budgeted, and it's the following July.
Okay. Because won't that increase our, we actually already own the actual park, that's right.
Cost will go up.
Yeah.
Sorry, which park is the Oregon Trail Park that's being?
It is over there, kind of the northwest area of town. Off of Edie Nell's settlement area over there. So,
How much does it cost to maintain the gas pump park?
I don't have that number, but it's not a lot. But a gallon of paint has gone up, though. So
It costs too much.
yeah.
Parks look beautiful.
Yeah, staff does a great job.
Is it Pioneer City Park or Oregon Trail Park?
Oregon Trail. That's what I was wondering.
I'm sorry. There's a Pioneer Park.
Is it Pioneer Park? Is that where the Oregon Trail is, or is there a different park?
There's a different park. Yes. So it's on the north side of Edie. There's a subdivision over there. It's fairly small. There's a path through there that the trees have just caused some significant damage to the trail. We're not able to slurry seal. We have to replace the path.
Okay.
I have one more question.
Yes.
At this point, do we know when the Murdoch Park realignment will happen, or is that phases?
The under general construction, we have information as far as the next phase of the development of Murdoch Park. Yeah, so we have money in this next 2 years as far as
I'll wait until I get to that. Sorry.
yeah, moving forward with the design of that park. Engineering, we have a lot of talented staff that are able to support the community. A lot of work is done in-house, a lot of engineering, drawings, all that is done in-house. So we're proud of the staff that we have to be able to do that. They manage a lot of projects from the Ped Bridge, which is a very large project for us, to our some ADA ramps that we're doing as well this year, to various street projects. They also take care of the private development that takes place out there to make sure that our standards, design standards, are adhered to make sure that the inventory or the infrastructure continues to last for us. We also do right-of-way permits to make sure the contractors working on our right-of-way are preserving our roadways and restoring them as they should. Some of the numbers are down for plan review, just on inspections, just because of the downturn on housing that's being forecasted.
Just a big shout out to your team and the pedestrian bridge. You guys are doing an amazing job. That we're on time and we haven't used up much of our contingency yet. So
They're doing a great job.
Awesome.
Yeah. We're anxious to open that up for the community.
Yeah, it looks beautiful.
Personnel services. One thing we're doing this year, personnel services, is that general fund has supported those positions over the years, and we're actually assigning those to the enterprise funds like water, sewer, storm. That should be paying for the work that they're doing for us on a regular basis. So you'll see quite a shift there on personnel services. And then the cost allocation coming in as well from those utilities.
Hey, this department's making a ton of money. This is great.
Some of that Rich mentioned about the shifting of the staff is just due to private development being down, and we're going to focus on other projects. So that's why they're shifted over. So
Makes sense. And that's not because of an accounting rule change. It's just the makeup of the projects and where they're funded out of.
Yep.
But yes, you're right. The revenue's related to development. Sorry. Took me a minute. Any questions on engineering? And just a shout out to staff. I mean, we have a lot of talented, dedicated people out there supporting the community. Thank you.
So I put in there a slide just for the first and second year of just one-time expenses. I don't know if there's really any questions. You can tell the one-time expenses are down a little bit compared to years past, and that was just, really had to look at, okay, to get the budget balanced and to meet our general fund contingency of 20%. So we kind of shifted some projects around, so that's why you're not seeing those figures up in the $1 million mark. But I don't know if I need to go through each and every one of those, or if anybody has any questions. There was that one typo, the new patrol vehicle. I just fat-fingered it. I apologize. I'll get that corrected in the book. And I'm adding that to, when we eventually get to the approval process, there'll be some Scribner errors and stuff that we've already talked about that will get fixed. So,
I just have one quick question. The one that's for facilities, the HVAC controls. Facilities, when we looked at their department budget, they didn't have any capital outlay. Is that included in materials and services in their department budget? Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where they included it, yeah.
Perfect.
Good catch.
So really, this is our opportunity, before we get into all the other funds, the Public Art Fund, is there any discussion the committee wants to have on the general fund? Or if there's no questions, we'll just continue on to to all the other funds.
Is it balanced?
What's that? We're balanced.
Okay.
I have one quick question.
Yes.
With the 8 positions being eradicated,
Mhm.
will that affect level of service to the public at all?
Yes, it will.
Okay, and when you say yes, it will, are you saying if we had a matrix and we said level of service from I'm coming in, I want to do X, Y, or Z. Do you think it's going to be like a 3-day effect, or will it be a 3-week effect, or what kind of level of service are we looking at?
Probably a great question.
Nancy, would you mind turning on your microphone?
sorry.
No, that's okay.
That one's on.
It is on.
Oh, it is on. Okay.
Okay,
Thank
so
you. Sorry, I saw the red.
I'll try and say it again. The question of level of service. When the public comes in for whatever it is they want serviced, what kind of matrix, if we were coming up with a matrix, what additional time should we say this 8 people will affect?
Where will people see the effect
Yes.
of the
Okay,
loss?
thank you. This is my part.
So I think that's a great question. I think it's a variety, because you're going to see the effects of the library going from 60 to 53 hours, even though Adrian and Kristen are working and the team is working through on non-peak hours. So hopefully the public won't see a lot, but there will be an hour here or there that changes, right? You get into the code compliance, you could be looking at a day or two, different response on that, depending on what the call is, right? Get into the parks side of things. We are going to use some contracted services for that, so hopefully there might be a little taller grass, but hopefully not, because we're being able to use that to off-shift some money. You get into the planning side. That person, I believe, took minutes at planning commission, so we're going to work through that and see how we can actually, I think we're still trying to figure that one all out internally, but you're going to see it's going to delay a little bit of time that person was working on things, right? The commercial plans examiner, that's being contracted out right now, so it's going to continue to be contracted out when we need to use commercial, right? So as far as the city records tech, it's going to slow the process down for Sylvia and her team to be able to do that. Hopefully, with having a city recorder, we have a backup for Sylvia now, where we don't, besides pulling somebody if we need to, as well as being able to work on the records tech duties of records management. So there will be a slowdown in that, but we also have people that are in certain departments that are supposed to be working on records management, so they might have to step up a little bit. So
So you feel there will be a minimal?
that's what we're hoping for in the end. I mean, when we evaluated the positions and we went through those, department heads put stuff up. I mean, it was laid out how we should actually do things, and I'm hoping that everybody did that, and I think they did. So, and then there had to be some additional cuts to get us year 3, 4, and 5 that I went ahead and just made because we need to make them to get the budget done. So,
What will the .5 at the PD do? Will that be taking a patrol officer off the road for 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week? What's that effect going to be?
I would ask Chief to answer that question, but also we have non-sworn officers that can actually do that as well. So I just don't know what the Chief's plan is there yet on that, besides our conversation early on.
Oh, hi.
Hey, Chief.
Yeah, it's going to vary from 15 to 20 hours. So this particular position also, they oversaw the Red Flex program, or Vera Mobility right now. They also were here on Fridays to testify as well. So depending on the volume and the trials, we'll be pulling patrol officers off. As Craig said, we can utilize non-sworn officers, so we're looking into being creative and utilizing the staff that we have to try and cover that.
Can the non-sworn officers do the court days?
No. So, I mean, they can testify,
Okay.
but they can't cover court security or things like that.
And then the non-sworn, I'm assuming that's like evidence and
Yeah,
CSO.
evidence and CSOs who we identified.
I mean, at some point, we hired the full-time evidence because there was a need for that with all the cameras and videos and technology and
Correct.
saving all that stuff. So, and now the CSO is also going to take on code enforcement. So, just was wondering what the impact was. So it sounds like some patrol off the road time will probably be likely.
Yeah, unfortunately, it'll go back to kind of the days when we had all patrol officers doing it. it did impact our patrol levels, and we were able to utilize that position there for a while. But so we'll go back and we'll adjust.
Just for clarification purposes, it's not taking a patrol officer off the road. It's the hours that they're going to have to use to make up for the position that we are going to.
Well, it's the time off the road, not
Right.
not an entire officer.
Yeah,
off
I
the
just
road.
wanted to make sure
Yeah.
that's really
Yeah.
clear.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
And our
Some hours from that officer
Yes.
off the road. Thank you.
There's a difference there. Thank you, Kim.
and the other side of that ledger is our red flex is down because of
It is.
changes that we made, so that'll help a little bit too.
It is. The challenge is always just the trials. You just never know, even though you're down, there's still people that we do spend a lot of time here. And we were able to utilize those positions for court security since that was a request, I think, probably in the last 5 years.
So just one more follow-up on that. Just make sure I understand and everybody understands. When you talk about non-sworn, the state changed the law so you don't have to have a sworn officer review the red flex cameras and recordings, correct?
Correct. So they can review and testify
They
on
can,
those.
so non-sworn can review and testify now?
Yes.
Just, and I know that you probably know the answer. Is there mechanisms with the 2-year budget now if crime, if we see that a trend, and I know that it takes a while to develop those kind of things, where we could answer that in a year or so if we need, if the city can do that, correct?
Some drastically changes.
Yeah, I
we can always
mean,
do a
if a
supplemental.
neighboring city that I just drove through that didn't look so good the other day decided to continue to spill over, we could address that as a community. I'm just asking. We have the mechanism to increase that if we needed to. Thank you.
If we run into issues as we move forward with this, we will be looking at that, and if we need to address something, we'll deal with it.
Obviously,
We don't
public
want that.
safety is
Yep.
one of our top priorities, so,
It is top priority.
at least for me.
Council's top priorities.
Yes.
I hope the city's
it's a
top
pillar.
priority.
Speaking for myself, I
Council and
can't
city
speak for the
are
others.
two different things.
Public safety is number one.
Correct.
So I just, to close out from the staff's point on the budget for the general fund, I did mention at the beginning that staff did ask for positions. Not only did we cut positions, but there was 5.5 to 6 FTEs asked for. A couple of them were short-term interned all the way to 2 police officers over the 2 years, human resource, finance, community service director that's still unfunded from a year and a half ago. Kristen's still doing that. So there was positions, the records, the person that got laid off, Sylvia had asked for an increase of 10 hours. So that's one side of it. The bigger concern I'm worried about is the $1.6 million that was cut in materials and services. If when David's talked in the past about we have an ending fund balance of 300, 400,000, whatever that number is, well, that's probably not going to happen this next year. So what I can say is it's very tight. There's still, one of the goals when we put this out was still a lot of training and that kind of stuff because we still got to provide service. We still want trained staff. But there's a lot of materials and services were cut. And it varies from department to department, but overall about 1.6. One department's about 700,000, another department's like 25,000. So some departments are bigger, so they can actually absorb. We also cut out, when David was talking about one-time expenses, Snyder Park Playground, that's up. You have the YMCA roof that's coming up, what was in this. You have ceiling of the building at the YMCA. You have ceiling of the building at the police station. Those were cut and moved out of the one-time expenses. So it's just not the staff. When David's talking about the general fund is tapped out to be able to want all this stuff, that's what David's talking about. It's not just the 2 or 3 staff here. It is if we truly, as a city, want to move forward, we need to find some other revenue sources if we're going to continue to have police services like we have, as well as other services and be able to provide them at a high level. That's where the general fund's at. And I think David mentioned this last year. He's mentioned it this year. I think I've been in here before when I was in the director's role, and he's talked the same thing about it's getting closer and closer. Well, with a little bit of private development slowing down, the photo red lights and a little bit of shared revenue, it really took us out, right? And we've made some decisions with our agreements over the last couple of years to move from a 13 to a 7-step system to be able to retain employees, which we need to retain our employees because we have some good employees. I think it's just finally caught all up. So I don't want to be shy about just the 8 employees. There was a lot of other things that went into this before we got to the employees. So.
I have one more thing to kind of throw in on the expense side. We had talked about in past years selling the Y to the Y, and my understanding is the Y can't afford it. And we thought about just putting the land and the building up for sale to whatever it is that wants to.
Council will be having that discussion coming up.
You know, we have an agreement for them to operate it for the next, we have 3.5, 4 more years. You know, so that's a decision, but that decision like that would require a lot of public involvement. You know, it is our only rec center in the city. We're not a member of 12, you know, the other park and rec districts in the region. So that's a big decision to require, and I'm not saying yay or nay, I'm just saying the process would require a lot of public outreach, you know, and discussions and stuff like that to do something that drastic.
When we looked at it last time, do you remember what the numbers were on value for the land and the building?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
The deal we had in place was for $5 million.
Okay. For them to buy it for $5 million, and they would have gotten the land and the
Correct,
building
except the skate park.
for $5 million.
And it was a sweetheart deal.
But I would caution, it's an interesting idea, but just in the big picture, I mean, and this is, I'm going to say this for everybody that might be listening, your property tax revenues that you pay go into our general fund. And they pay for basically the expense and maintenance of maintaining everything we have in the city. We also have a parks fund, we have a street fund, we have a water fund, a sewer fund. Those are paid for different revenue sources, you know, your SDCs and stuff like that. The crazy thing about what we do is a parks fund will pay for the capital construction of a new park, right? But it doesn't pay for the maintenance. That all gets now we have to bear that cost in the general fund.
Well, and that's a good point. I mean, the sale of the Y is not going to help our general fund.
Yeah, that would go.
It goes into the parks fund.
And it'd be one-time money, so the only thing it does is kick the can down the road. You know, even if
It saves us from buying a new roof.
Yeah.
But it doesn't fix our budget hole.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's a big decision, you know, and you never know where
I
the
understand that.
community's at with something like that.
It should be a ballot issue, and it should be on as we voted it in as citizens, it should be voted out as citizens.
Doesn't have to be, but
We still have to look at it.
definitely some public input.
Yeah, and just for everybody listening, there's no plan going on right now to
Yeah.
do that. It's a conversation that we, out of our fiduciary
We haven't even had
responsibility.
that.
Oh,
We haven't even had that conversation yet, so I just don't want anyone to think this is a plan that's in the works.
I do want, go ahead.
So I was going to say, of all what Craig talked about, the really one concerning aspect is, I think deferred maintenance is always a bad thing, and it will catch up eventually where we can't even stay on top of our maintenance if we keep kicking the can down the road.
That's correct.
I just wanted to point that out because that is a huge deal. As we start to move forward, we can't get playground equipment for Snyder Park because it's 20 years old. That's like I mentioned last week. That's what happened to Murdoch Park. Then we run into problems and we have to replace it or close it off, right? So as long as you all understand there's deferred maintenance, we're not meeting and we're pushing stuff out. It's going to continue to grow as we go. So I am glad that we years ago started putting money away for the turf fields because back when we replaced them the first go around, there hadn't been money set aside. So not a lot, and we had to eat that cost. So I'm glad we're doing that now, knowing that those fields are going to be coming up in the next couple, 3 or 4 years for replacements.
Have we done the analysis on cost, turf versus grass?
But probably not recently. I think that we did something back when we were building them, but we haven't done anything recently.
Yeah, I mean, I know historically, I think that the argument for turf always made sense, but could have changed, I don't know, more recently.
So So what my big concern, besides the deferred maintenance, is the employees. I've been in companies where, we were tightening our belts. Everybody's expecting to do more with less. At a certain point, we burn out those employees that we're trying to hang on to, by saying, hey, you got to keep doing more with less. And so is there a concern about that, or what kind of signals are we going to see that are going to say, hey, we're as stretched as thin as we can be. Let's talk about reduction in services versus reduction in people, right? If
Good staff, because
we're going to lose good staff who are like, well, you know what, I'm retiring because you're making me work,
No, I agree with that. People are going to get burned out, right?
Yeah.
What I can say since being in this role, the city isn't top heavy. We had an independent person come in here and do an organization assessment. And when you compare with other cities around here and our size, that's what come back in that assessment that they looked at, where we needed to improve in certain areas, why we have a communication person in the budget. That's one of the recommendations. Procurement, grants. So there's these things that we've crammed into certain people because they're good at, right? So then they get burned out, they leave. But I think those things we're going to have to address as a leadership team here, because there's a good chance that happens.
Yeah.
The reality is our income growth is basically capped at 3% a year.
Right.
We've all been looking at our costs go up 10 to 15% a year. That's just math.
Yeah.
And then there are only three ways you can solve that. Are you either grow your base, right, through new development, you come up with other revenue streams, or you cut things.
Right.
And that doesn't just mean cutting people and trying to do the same amount of services. It means we're cutting programs. We're cutting, and I'm not suggesting that. I'm saying, like, if we're sitting here in 2 years and growth hasn't happened, then our choice is down to two things. We either start cutting significant programs and services. Now, they may be things that we like to have, but don't have to have. Or we have to come up with some other outside revenue other than growth.
So Doug, whose job is it to look for new sources of revenue? Is that?
I assume it's our staff's job.
Is that your job, or is that city council's job?
I think it's
Joint.
It's
Joint?
It's a joint effort.
It's happening all the time in a lot of areas. We invest about $100,000 a year for our lobbyists, but that's returned
Right.
us about $21 million to various funds over the last 5 years. So we're constantly applying for grants and stuff. I think your question is more about operational, ongoing revenue streams, whether that's a levy, whether that's fees on there's all kinds of options for that. I think that's a council staff decision.
Okay.
And it's also a community, because any fee we add has to go to a vote. That levy has to go to a vote. So if we're going to do something like that, we got to make a case and sell it to the community.
So I guess that's where I'm saying is, if we continue down this path, hopefully this is sustainable, what we've done now. But if we continue to see revenue drop, we are going to get to we're going to have to lower our levels of services in certain areas. And when you go to community service, start looking at that, they're not there's not a lot of people that work in those areas. Because if you get rid of somebody there, you're closing the doors, because we are running lean in a lot of places in the city. So,
Well, yeah, you mentioned that we have the same staffing levels since 2017 or something.
well, if you go back to the general fund side of things, it was like, I think I said last week, 17, 18,
Yeah.
with 87 and a half people is what we had. So,
Oh.
yeah. I want everybody to understand that's where we're at as a city, as we move forward. If we don't find revenue, we're going to, as you said, Counselor, that expenses are going up and revenue's staying way down. So that's where we're
I
at.
want to clarify something. When we say, in this context, when we say expenses are going up, it's real important for the public to understand a lot of that is external forces. PERS rates for the state retirement system that we're required by law to participate in went up drastically this year. Our insurance went up this year. Benefits, all of those line items that directly relate to employees are going up faster than the 3%. Doug, it'd be wonderful if we could just wave a wand and match those two lines, but a lot of it's out of our control.
And one thing I'd just like to add, when we were looking at the general fund forecast, there's still 6 contract negotiations that are going to affect that forecast. So that makes me nervous.
And usually in the wrong direction. They're pretty much always in the wrong direction.
Yes, you're correct.
You never
You never
you never gain in a contract.
And you're talking
renewal.
about our labor contracts.
Labor contracts,
Just
yeah.
for everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a question about that. So if that goes in the wrong direction, which typically they're never low, is that pulling from contingency, or do you think that you feel you have enough reserves in this budget to cover those negotiations over the next 2 years?
You know, a part of the contract negotiations, and, you know, I bring information to city council, which we're basing decisions off of. We're looking at the 5-year forecast. And so any major decision, we're really going to have to analyze that 5-year forecast and decide, do we want to dip into contingency? Well, if you dip into contingency, ultimately that's going to hurt that forecast. So it's really, you know, working with the city manager, working with city council to make decisions from there. So yeah, I don't really have a good answer for you.
No, yeah, I mean, supplemental budget's probably the answer.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So really, you're looking at having to be really creative, possibly for some of the revenue streams, and maybe it's fees or some kind of thing that, of course, none of us. It's not the best case scenario, but
Well, and the environment right now is not great because
Right.
PG is raising fees. There's several ballot measures coming this November that want to raise fees. I mean, we're not the only ones. Just about every city I talk to has these structural budget issues. We are, the good news is we are nowhere near as bad as a lot of cities around
Right.
us.
Actually, one of the only ones who doesn't have a levy.
Right, and we don't have a levy, right? And a lot of those cities have levies today, and they still have budget deficits. So we're in good shape from that point of view. But your point's spot on.
well, and that's where hopefully your communications person would help you. Is, I mean, you need to give the city a fair. We're doing great. However,
Yeah.
some communication on where you are, and what you're expecting.
I just didn't want any surprises,
Yeah,
and I wanted
that's fair.
to be open that the department heads did put in for positions, and, you know, it just didn't work out this time around, so.
I think it's a real credit to all of the department heads and all of the people that work in those departments that we deliver an A plus level, A plus level of service across the entire city with, like you said, the same staff we've been doing with, the same number of people we've been doing it with for almost a decade. And I mean, I think what I see and what I hear from the community across the board is that, you know, our level, and we heard some examples earlier, the level of service that people get in the library and the arts center and the senior center and from Public Works and parks, like it's top notch. It's like top notch. Like you go to some of these cities and people like, I call to get because my water meter's broken and nobody shows up. Nobody calls me back. I don't know if they're coming. I don't even know if they got my message. Like we don't have that here. Like, so it's dire, but I have to sing the praises of everything that people working here do. So.
Thank you.
And along with singing it, you need to let the community know about it.
But it's at risk. It's at risk if this budget, if not the budget, but it's at risk if not today it's at risk, but it's not that far away, right? If things don't change.
And that's really what I wanted to, you know, today we're going through these cuts, but it's gonna continue, if it continues, that's where we're heading. So, and I think that's where we're heading. David's been saying that for a couple budget cycles that I'm aware of, and I think it just finally caught up when the revenues.
Good morning, that's.
Can I ask one more quick question? I think it's the Community Investment Fund that has the ARPA money that was put into it that's also unrestricted. Was there ever discussions about, I know it would just be kicking the can down the road a few more years, about if you use some of that unrestricted money to help supplement the general fund in a different way than what is originally
So
planned?
amongst senior leadership, we did have some conversations on that, but really that is if council wants to go that direction, right?
Right,
So-
yeah.
I would be very careful about that because the problem just gets worse.
It just kicks it down the road, but.
And it's a big reason, some big cities in a big county that we might be sitting in right now, they used a lot of ARPA money for operational expenses, and that's one of the reasons they're so far out of whack.
Yeah.
Yeah,
have
I'd be
been.
more inclined to use one-time money for a roof replacement or a vehicle.
I think that's more what I
purchase or
was getting
something.
at, was
Yeah.
some of the
Sure.
one-time expenses, maybe from that versus the general fund.
We have not talked about that recently among council, but I'd be happy to hear what the staff wants to
We
say
have
about
been
it.
using it from, if I'm getting the right fund, right? Because we have a lot of funds these days. For the succession planning of the police department, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have utilized it to loan money to some of the other enterprise funds for some of the projects. We did use it for career cycle planning in the police department, just for the plan for those future retirements. So we have utilized it to some degree. You know, with the interfund loans, that ultimately it's going to pay back that community investment fund, so that fund can be made whole. But yeah, really, it's discussions that we'll have to have internally and bring to city council. But I did leave the flexibility in that fund when we get to it, where I put the amount that we have available in contingency if a decision is made in the next couple of years, that we'd be able to access that money.
Is it appropriate to ask what some of the conversations have been for use of that money? Please, senior staff?
I believe, I'd have to go back through my notes, but there was some conversations about, to be able not to let so many staff go, but again, like the mayor says, you're just pushing it down longer, right? And there was some of that. There's been some conversations over time about one-time expenses, so, as well. But we did talk about it for the staffing side, but again, you're just pushing it out longer, right? Because we know that the ticket revenue is going to stay down. Private development could come back, it could, but right now it's not, so. And it might be a while till it comes back, right? Till Sherwood West or whatever, like we've seen the numbers, so.
5 or 6 years out, we'll start seeing Sherwood West. That'll help.
And I might be missing something that we talked about, but I think that kind of covers it.
And I know we've said that that's a council decision, but that investment fund is part of the budget. So, I mean, the budget committee could put a recommendation forward. Ultimately, it would still come to council.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have to do that tonight, though, right?
Well, it'd have to be done before the budget process went to council, which would be either tonight or next
week.
Thursday, depending if we have a meeting.
Yeah.
I doubt we'll be in tonight.
Well, let's get going.
Here,
wants
here,
to end it
sister.
That's my goal.
Didn't mean to put a damper on it, but I just want to be upfront with everybody, that's
I
where we're
think
at.
that was an important conversation to have, so
Yeah.
thank you.
We're doing that.
Yep.
All right, if there's no any further questions on the general fund, we're going to move to the public art fund, and I'll turn that over to Kristen. And she needs the microphone.
Oh, sorry.
So the Public Art Fund, we have one major project that's going on right now, and that's the installation and the artwork, the deer that are going to go in the Oregon Street roundabout. The deer are ready to come to Sherwood. However, we're still waiting on a right-of-way permit. So
Oh, do we have a ribbon cutting, or do we have a feeding, or
I'm not
what do
sure.
we do when the deer come?
So they're ready, they're done.
County that's being a roadblock.
Yeah. So we're waiting for that.
Something that no one can paint.
The county road. It's
Well,
county road.
I don't want to say never, but let's hope not.
There are certain coatings that you can just use water to spray them down.
I'd have to look it up.
They have
I don't-
anti-graffiti coating.
Thank you.
Looks
There we
like
go.
deer.
Yes.
Exactly. Are you gonna put little signs around that say these are not real deer? Don't freak
I
out.
hope we don't have to tell our community.
Well, and they'd have to run across the roundabout. Yeah.
Well, I already talked about it when we were talking about the deer.
Yeah. So they're going to look fabulous. Other than that, we're working on updating the master plan that we already have, the public art master plan, and seeking partnerships to promote art within the community and funding opportunities. So,
That master plan already needs updated? Is that what you said?
I'm sorry, what was that?
We're updating the public art
We have a public art master plan.
Oh, but didn't we just finish that like 2 years ago?
It's been longer than that. I know, time has flown, but we just want to make sure that now, because one of it was identifying funding sources, and that was before we actually had a public art fund. So now that we do have a public art fund, we're just updating it to include that.
And I'm going to do one of my PSAs for people listening, because we know this stuff, but public art fund is funded right now by transient lodging tax. And the state severely limits what we're allowed to spend TLT tax on. And to answer questions that might be out there, we know we can't spend it on general fund expenses and employees. So the state, under state law, it's highly regulated. There is a bill in the Senate right now that potentially will loosen that up a little bit, but I want to mention these things because we just talked about cutting 8 people and we're talking about public art. So it's
Two different things.
yeah, two different things, two different
Also one-time
pots.
money, well, it's
And
not
it's-
one-time money, but it's not enough to fund the person at
Right.
It's not.
Right.
Yeah.
44 grand.
And how much did these deer cost?
I believe
How much is the sign that's gonna say these aren't real deer cost?
the total project cost is close to $120,000 for all of the deer installation.
And how many deer get sold?
And the basalt rock, thank you. There's
That's
3,
what they
yeah, there's gonna be rocks. One of them's jumping off. It's gonna be beautiful. Actually,
The family. You're gonna be able to kill Bambi and her whole family.
2 does, a deer, and a
All right, that was great.
fawn.
Next.
Awesome.
And just to add on to, I know the mayor already talked about the funding stream. Nothing is budgeted, no additional project has been identified. But if you were to look at page 93 of your budget book, you'll notice I've built in money into contingencies. So if a project is identified, we can access these funds through a supplemental budget to move forward with a project. So it's not as if we didn't budget anything for next couple years, so we can't access any money. So I left that flexibility for, for any kind of public art.
The fund's replenishing, so if we decide we want to
Move forward with
fund
something.
some other public art project in the next 2 years, we can.
Yeah, we can access those funds.
And just a quick side note, we do have the ability to raise our TLT tax.
Some of us have proposed doing it months ago.
Right, and-
Still waiting for that conversation.
For folks listening, that's basically that little fee that you see on your hotel bill if you stay in a hotel. We do have people talking about building additional hotels in Sherwood, so if the state
Revenue every month.
loosens
Can
up
you
the
remind
rule.
us what the percentage is at this time?
That's just our piece.
No, I know.
Yeah, so
I
it's
know,
state and
but-
county piece.
You mentioned it, you didn't state what it was.
Yeah,
I
no,
thought for
no.
the public, it might be good.
Yeah, awesome.
What's it limited to?
Tourism.
Tourism-related facilities,
30% can go into the general fund, the rest
yeah,
has to go to
30% is unrestricted, yeah.
So public art, arts center, that kind of stuff. A lot of cities give their portion of it to their chamber. Throw those too.
And we're not there yet, though. Are we doing that?
No, not currently.
Good.
All right, next we're going to move to Economic Development and Promotion Fund. I'm going to bring Eric up here. And I don't know if you want to touch on all of the research. Sure.
Yeah. Hey there, Eric Rutledge, CD Director at the city. Go to the next one. I think everyone knows we have an economic development manager. His name is also Eric with a K. He's Bruce's replacement, and he's been with the city just over 6 months now. He's been doing a great job. He's been out and about in the community, talking to businesses, other governments, ECDEV organizations, just really keeping Sherwood on the map and continuing the legacy that Bruce left for us. So a lot of the metrics are just around kind of what he, as an individual staff member, is going to, chew off and accomplish. So a lot of it is about networking, and really it's just about how many contacts we're going to have with the business community and others who are involved in economic development. Go to the next one. So this is a relatively new fund for us. It would include a portion of the salary of the ActDev manager. The other portion comes from the Urban Renewal Agency. Terms of materials and service, for the next 2 years, we have about 50,000. Most of that is going to be cost allocation back to the general fund. So we'll have roughly 20,000 in other spending that Eric will use for things like attending events, networking, things like that. What I will point out, and we've had some discussion in the past at the council level about financial incentives for economic development. So we're adopting the Old Town Strategic Plan. Part of that plan, some of the actions could say, the city should consider a facade program, or the city should consider waiving SDCs for, target businesses in Old Town. Given where we're at, this budget doesn't include any dedicated funding for what I'd call financial incentives for economic development or businesses. So I just wanted to make that clear. One of the things that we are looking at, to Craig's point about revenue sources, is Eric and I are looking at potential revenue sources that can support economic development. One of them is the TLT that we just talked about. So Eric's doing some research on that right now. Of course, it'd be up to council discretion whether that goes towards art, ECDev, combo of both. And we're also looking at a number of other programs that we can do to bring in revenue and give that back to the business community. So I think it's very understandable in this environment that there's not a lot for incentives, but we are looking at programs that would bring in revenue that are sort of scaled to and appropriate for economic development.
I would argue too that the investment we've made over the last, I really started down this path about 5 years ago. And when you look, we've brought on 1.5 million square feet of advanced manufacturing tilt-up space, 900 new jobs. If you added up just the additional property taxes we're collecting because of this project, it far outweighs what we're spending on this program.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the way I always describe the ECDev and the private development, we get the benefit of the budget that year through the fees, whether it's, a building permit fee, a land use fee, storm, water, development impact fees. But then the big benefit, the long-term benefit, and getting to some of the issues that we were talking about earlier, that those properties are going on the tax roll. And it's actually... That goes to the general fund, unless they're in the Urban Renewal Agency. But what I will point out, and I can't speak to the exact details, but in the budget book, we list each year the top 10 property tax payers in the city. And if you were to look, 5 years ago, before we went and embarked on this industrial, attraction, the top 10 were going to be really heavy in the commercial shopping centers, large apartment complexes, and then sometimes institutional, PGE, school district, things like that. If you look at it now, the large industrial sites are now starting to come into the top 10. And I think once Sherwood Commerce Center finishes their phases, without a doubt, they'll be at the top of that list. So from a overall fiscal health standpoint, it's great to see, because we're not just heavy in commercial, basically retail, commercial, and apartments. Now we've added kind of a third sector to that, which is industrial, which is really good. So the one I'd point out, let's see. Oh yeah, Wilshire. So the top one, Wilshire, is already an industrial. That's an industrial project. That's TS Corporate Park that went in. So I think the benefits are clear, and we'll continue that.
Thanks for pointing that out. Actually, when I was reading the budget packet, that was something that I was drawn attention to immediately.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Happy to answer any questions, but I think it's just continuance of, Eric mainly as a staff person, kind of just hitting the road and continuing to put Sherwood on the map and attract the businesses.
Great job. Different, obviously different than Bruce, but still as dynamic and as...
He's incredibly sharp and pays attention and is focused on the goal, on, the bang for the buck in what we do. There's not a lot of wasted time with what he's doing. Yeah.
I was recently got to go on a tour with GPI, Greater Portland Inc., which helps companies find property to set up shop. And we saw a presentation from Lamb Research, who recently expanded into Sherwood, and they specifically called out in their presentation Sherwood and how easy it is we make it for them to do business here. Yeah.
Our goal.
Yeah,
That was our goal.
and that's when you don't have the incentives you're talking about. That's the next best thing you can do.
Yeah.
You make it easy.
Absolutely. Yep. Time is money. So we get through permits very, very quickly here. If you're in other jurisdictions, big jurisdictions, I've heard year or more to get permits. If you're one of these businesses, developers that we're targeting, we can get you through in 6 to 8 weeks. And that's money to them actually. So we don't it's not typically called a financial incentive, but they see it as a financial incentive. So in lieu of, being offering direct incentives, I think that's what we can offer and continue to offer. Any other questions? All right, thanks.
Great job. Thank you.
All right, so speaking of transient lodging tax fund, that's going to be the next fund we talk about. So really in terms of the goals, as Eric just talked about, we're really going to research and develop a plan to potentially grow this as previously mentioned, potentially new hotels, and then also looking at the rate that's currently being charged. And Eric already covered that. Really, in terms of the revenue, it's mainly coming from the one hotel that we have. There's a few little, folks that rent out their homes, little Airbnbs, depending on what platform they're on. And all that money gets transferred over the general fund, and then we allocate that all out to, that we have already talked about, the Economic Development Fund, the Public Art Fund. Some of it stays in the general fund. We got the unrestricted portion, help support the Center of the Arts, their operations. So not really too many exciting things going on in the Transient Lodging Tax Fund, but I'm open for any questions that folks might have on this.
This is just for the community and the budget committee. One of our council goals this year is to have a discussion on transient lodging tax, just to make sure we're going to where we still want it to go, or changes need made, but that'll be coming up.
I know that the council, or the city paid for a hotel study, and it said we could support 2 to 3, and I think we had a second one that got permitted. Any word from any of these? It seemed like there's a lot of excitement from the Marriotts and Hiltons and everything. Or do we have any more excitement? I don't know if Eric's.
Yes, we of course have one hotel now. The study said that we could accommodate up to 2 more hotels, so 3 total. The hotels were not geared towards wine country that type of hospitality, so we're kind of poking at that. And at the time, it was about 2 years ago, but at that time, and
You're saying the study didn't contemplate wine tourism, it was just...
Correct. It's basically corporate travel, construction work travel, things like that, plus just base visitation, a little bit of sports events, things like that. So I just want to clarify the type of hotel. The study said that we could accommodate up to 2 more of those. So we do have one hotel on the Langer property that is approved and vested, meaning that they don't have to come back for land use approval. They can pull building permits at any time, and that's because the work that they did, including the retail that's going in now, that has vested the entire project. So the hotel can come in for building permits at any time, which is really good news. So we're still talking with Langer and encouraging them to move forward. From what I understand, he's the business is chewing off the retail first, so you're seeing that go in, and then they're going to look and gauge whether the hotel is feasible. We're also still giving tours. We gave a tour 2 weeks ago to hotel developers looking at some of the Old Town sites. So we're still giving those. What I will say is hotels are it's a sensitive development type. So there's got to be a lot of certainty to move forward. They're not easy projects to deliver from a development standpoint. So I think that's the reason why we don't have more right now is, it's difficult to get them to pencil, and they lose money for the first few years usually, and so there's got to be a lot of certainty and a lot of confidence in the market to move it forward. So,
Especially when there's a lot of uncertainty right now.
absolutely. I mean, there's they're a sensitive development type, so it's not easy to get them to actual construction. Yeah.
No, I did see the new Marriott open down in Newburgh, and so I was hoping that we hadn't lost out.
Yeah. I still think we're ripe for another one, but it's not my money on the line. So, yeah.
All right.
Go.
David, with the house rental, Airbnb type of rentals, that's self-reporting, is that correct?
It is.
And
we contract to the county. The county runs and collects our transient lodging tax. And I know when I was at Clackamas County, I went out and visited Washington County, and they do monitor websites, and they will go after folks for noncompliance.
okay, so we rely on them.
And part of the when I was at Clackamas County, we worked with our attorney, to where we can start sharing. They can start sharing information from what the state collects to what the county collects to see is everything matched up, because people are more apt to pay the state versus paying the county. So it kind of helped out with collections. So yeah, there's they have their own transient lodging tax department. That's all they work on. So
Some preliminary conversations going on at Salem about improving that whole auditing and collection system as well.
yeah.
I think it was last year or the year before at the LOC conference, there was actually a vendor there who, what they did was they said, where do you live? I said, Sherwood. They plug in the zip code. It says, oh, I show you have, I don't know, 22 Airbnbs or whatever. They monitor all the sites for the cities, the states, or whatever. And
Yeah.
can help make sure that
Yep.
maybe the county uses something like that. Who knows?
So I understand from some reading that I've done that Airbnbs are starting to convert back to single-family or multifamily dwellings because the housing markets are so tight.
It depends on where you're at.
Yeah.
It's like in the college towns, the really tourist-centric town, they have the opposite problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, there are conversations around that, so I can see why monitoring tightly would be important.
There are actually some towns that either don't allow Airbnbs or short-term rentals. In fact, a town in California, they actually had to change the law to allow the short-term rentals after all the fires because their town didn't allow them, but there was such a need. Yeah.
And I think some of the coastal towns here, they were,
Towns have done that now.
yeah, or there was a fight back and
Well,
forth
I
on.
think they ended up grandfathering, if you already had an
Yeah.
existing short-term rental, you were grandfathered in, but no new ones.
Yeah. All right, so next is the grant fund. And really, what makes up this fund is our Community Enhancement Grant Program. This is money we receive from Metro that they collect through Pride Disposal, that we hand out in grants. There's certain restrictions on who's eligible. It's, municipalities, nonprofits, school districts. So it is kind of restricted to what we can hand out and to who we can hand it out to. On June 3rd, there's going to be a work session where the committee is going to make decisions on all the applications that were received this year. There's quite a number of applications and a high dollar amount, more than we have to give out, but that's ultimately up to the committee to decide who and what they're going to give the money to.
And they've already been vetted.
Like,
The people asking for the grant money have already been vetted.
yeah, the finance department vets it, and if they meet the requirements, we pass it on to the committee, and then the committee ultimately makes the funding decision. That's not anything that city staff's involved in. It's ultimately the committee makes that decision. And really, materials and services, the way I budgeted this, I looked at, there is a little bit of a reserve policy for kind of larger projects. I just committed 100% of what's available if the committee so chooses to hand out that money. But this is something that we're going to have to hold every year. We're still going to have the committee meeting next spring, even though we're on a biennial budget. just for any new grant applications.
Is there any, how much carryover is in there? I saw on the material side what was being budgeted for this year, but I didn't see if there was any residual carryover from.
There is carryover, that 20% carryover. I have 67,000 stuck in my head, which includes this year, because the last 2 years we had the reserve, and then also the 20% for this year. So I had built into, if you were to look into your budget book, in contingency, just in case the committee decides they want to invest in a larger capital project, that reserve is available for them to access if they would like.
Obviously, we'll talk about all that next week.
Yep, next Tuesday.
Question, on the revenue lines, can you just help me understand the 217 going down to 112? Is that fund balance or actual revenue received in that fiscal year?
I'd have to look into that, but I know in 2023 there was an additional fee that if Pride so choose to collect it, can be passed on to Metro, which is passed on down to city. So we received like a bump up in the revenue that 1 year, and now it's gone back down to normal levels where we're be receiving anywhere between $100,000 to $110,000 a year at the most. There's some interest in there as well too, but I can get you that exact answer just to look at the detail. But I recall that's when we agreed to receive that additional funding, because, why not?
Let's agree to receive it every year.
Exactly.
If it were available, huh?
But our funding at the time was going down, and then they figured out some additional funding, and that's what was reflected in there. But I'll get you the exact detail on that.
In the material and services, that's where the money's going out in the form of grants.
Correct. And then the transfer out, Metro allows us to charge up to 20% administrative fee. We feel that's a little too high. But there's quite a bit of time put into vetting these applications, following up, making sure folks are sending in their closeout reports, and monitoring, make sure folks are doing actually what they said they applied for. And so we charge just a 5% fee, just a small fee for the finance department, because our time is being allocated out here. All right, so let's talk about the Community Investment Fund. This right now, nothing's been identified. I don't want to say nothing's been identified. We've already clarified that, where this fund has helped fund the career cycle planning for the police department. It has helped out the sewer fund with the loan for a maintenance project, and then also has helped out broadband. So it is helping out various funds, and the sewer fund and the broadband fund, they'll ultimately pay the community investment fund back. But right now, we're just growing that through our investments. We're earning anywhere between 4.5% to 5% on our money. So it's growing, which is nice.
How much is in the fund right now?
How much is in the fund? And that's, yes, and it's a little bit misleading because of the way government accounting is. Even though, but $3 million of that you've loaned out. But under governmental accounting, it looks like you have more. Yeah. But that's why if you were to turn to page 98 of your budget book, reserve for future years, $3 million, that's the money loaned out. You can't
about $1 million available.
Yeah, about $1.1 million available. And I have that down in contingency in
like
case,
you said earlier.
Yeah, in case there's a decision made on use of funding.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kim.
And you'll notice, just really quick in your slides, you'll notice investment income is going down because those loans were just made this current fiscal year, and so now that cash is not there. It's not expenditure on the book for the Community Investment Fund because it's really asset liability, but now that the cash is not there, they're going to be earning less interest, but the funds that are paying the Community Investment Fund back is going to be paying interest expense, which is ultimately interest revenue. So it will slowly tick back up.
But we can't buy any lawnmowers with this, right?
Could buy a nice fancy one with $1 million.
Come on, Kim. Make it happen.
I was just putting it out there that the budget committee can make recommendations.
All right, the next fund is the street operations, and we're going to have Rich on for a while now.
It's the Rich Show. It used to be the Craig Show. Now it's the Rich Show.
I love talking about utilities. So.
You nerd.
Been in the game for a little while. So, as mentioned earlier, this last year we adopted the ADA plan. So I just want to highlight that street operations. We this year and continuing years, we are dedicating $100,000 towards that effort, replacing about 10 ADA ramps on an annual basis. We continue to maintain a high PCI rating. That's a pavement condition index. I believe council goal is 80 for that with our streets. So we continue to do the preventive maintenance measures, whether they crack sealing, slur sealing, replacement of roadways, grind and overlay. Also, a few other notes are inventory and assets continue to climb. So as we add new streets, there's more signs, there's more street segments that need continued maintenance.
These aren't new signs, right?
Street signs?
2,480 new signs?
Those are existing, so it just went up. So it goes up from 2438, so it went up about, 42 signs.
All right. So, I don't know. I don't want to get too far in the weeds. What? Yeah, I mean, once a sign goes in, unless it's stolen or something.
No, we do maintenance every year, so we make.
Just telling us how many signs they have that we have to maintain.
Yeah. So we.
They get hit by cars.
Yeah. So we make sure that they're visible, make sure that they're reflective as they need to be. We inspect them on an annual basis.
Right. How do we do that inspection? I'm just curious. Do we have someone physically drive around and look at each sign?
We do, but we also have a retroreflectometer meter that actually measures the sign itself. We also check for fading and make sure that they're clean off graffiti, that type of stuff off the signs. But yes, that is something that we drive around to do.
Mayor, we're actually looking at some AI systems too right now for in the future.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I was asking. Yeah.
Hey, Katie, I was asked for if we could take like a 5-minute break real quick.
Perfect. Okay, well,
Sorry, Rich, were you in a good stopping point?
That's perfect.
Okay.
I just want, as long as I keep talking about utilities, so I get another chance.
okay, we'll come back at 8.
Yeah, let's hold a 5-minute. It's
Not a 15.
It's 7:57, so
Well, then say 2 minutes.
Vice Chair Lana, it used to be.
Kim, we're not finishing tonight. Can you accept it? I mean, I'm with you. I don't know why we can't.
Not with that attitude.
I'm tired.
Coming back? All right, all right. All right, good.
So yeah, we talked about a few of the matrix that we had there for the street operations. Some projects that we have coming up this last year, continuations of a project that we started with the downtown streetlights. So that was a vast improvement to downtown, so we'll be continuing with that project. We also, you've noticed if you've traveled downtown, some of the trees are getting quite large and they're outgrowing their grates. Unfortunately, we're gonna have to likely remove some of those trees and replant those trees to be able to fix those hazards that are present out there. We also continue to fund out of our transfer out that goes to our street maintenance projects, but also $100,000 goes out to the Traffic Safety Committee.
So are you saying that the trees that will need to be removed are coming out of materials and services? Did I hear that right?
Yes, correct.
Can't we get them donated?
The trees?
Would be nice.
We could always try, yeah.
So I would just add something there, Rich, is on this. There's a bigger increase in the personnel services because we have more people working over in the streets, as well as our trails are part of our transportation system. So trail maintenance has actually moved over to the street operations side, so of how we're funding it. So just so everybody knows that.
That also reflects some of the increase in the services, maintenance services for trail maintenance. Yep, correct. Yes. Any questions on street operations?
Is the departmental revenue mostly the gas tax? Or is that in the?
We have a fee, street fee.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it's a lot of state shared revenue. We got the county vehicle registration funds that come from the county, about a little over $350,000 in gas tax, and yeah.
Got it.
Any other questions? Street capital. Just list a few of the projects here. One thing project that we're starting this year and completing hopefully early fall is the Sunset Timberwolf Crosswalk enhancement. So we'll be putting a pedestrian hybrid beacon there. That project is out for bid at this time. We should have likely all of the improvements done, other than likely be waiting for the pole mounts for that. Those are being ordered. Arrow Street, that is a project that we started here a month or so ago, and that is anticipated to be completed here in the next 2 months. We continue to have projects for traffic calming, so to the Traffic Safety Committee, we get recommendations to make improvements out there in the public. And then some other pavement management pavement projects that we have coming up this next 2 years as well. That's to help keep our PCI up. Street capital of personnel services. Again, as mentioned earlier, our engineering staff spends considerable time with street capital, and we're allocating their time towards those utilities.
Which was originally in the general fund?
Yes. We also have a traffic safety, transportation plan where we have staff in there as well.
And that just goes to show, if we hadn't allocated their actual time working for another fund, how much even worse the general fund would be.
There would have been more layoffs.
Yeah. Any questions on street capital? So again, a number of projects that staff does in-house.
Did you ask Al's if they wanted to donate the daffodils?
No, we did not.
Stop by and ask them.
Do I need to stop by and ask them?
Yeah.
Would like to donate the daffodils?
Good luck with that.
So that is a street name, yes. So. Okay. General construction. So we have a few projects in general construction. Councilor Stankey, you asked about Murdoch Park, so that's listed in here. We have trail network expansion improvements as well. We set some money aside for that, and then we have the adjacent art center design as well. So if the strategic plan moves forward with Old Downtown that Eric's been working on, there's some money in there to be able to do something with the gravel lot next to the Center for the Arts. We do have some staff time that helps out with those projects. Materials and services and capital outlay is also reflective of the projects listed above. Any questions on general construction?
And this is one where if you were to turn to page 103 in your budget book, there's a charges for services line, and that's when we go back to the that Kristen was talking about, you know, the Snyder Park, the fees we collect for those outdoor. This is where it gets reported. Sorry. What's that? The $82,000 income. I wish it was $1 million.
Yeah. If only.
Oh, charges for services, is what you're saying?
Yep. Waterfront.
Thank you, David. So water operations, we take pride in the water that we serve to the community. We invested years ago into the Willamette River Water Treatment Plant, partnered with Wilsonville and 12 Valley Water District on that. There are a number of programs that we do on a regular basis, whether that's flushing our water systems to maintain the quality of the water, make sure that all of our backflow assemblies are tested to make sure that our water stays safe. So those are programs that we do to make sure that our water is safe for everybody. And then we have continued on meter maintenance, some other programs that we do on a regular basis as well. We're not anticipating, we're actually anticipating a little bit of a decline in water use this next year. Services are set to grow about 97 connections. That's related, I'm sorry, that was 24, 25. I guess it's hard to do with the calculation there. About 100 service connections, I guess, is what we're expecting to grow this next year. And then backflow assemblies, so those are just on homes, businesses. Again, we have a program that makes sure that those are tested annually for the water to stay safe.
Is a permit required to install a backflow assembly?
There is. A homeowner can do the installation, but a permit is required.
Okay.
And permit with an inspection?
Yes.
And is it at the beginning and the end?
The inspection. So you would get the permit, you would install the backflow, and then the plumbing inspector would come out to take a look at that.
I just had 2 backflows inspected this morning at my house.
Pretty soon too.
I passed.
That's all that matters.
What capacity is our ability to deliver clean water at? I mean, are we at 50%? Is this something that potentially we could offer to other cities as a revenue source? Is this, I mean, are we good for Sherwood West? I mean, where are we at?
Sure. So we've been making investments into the water treatment plant. We did an expansion this last 2 years.
Yeah.
So that gave us the ability to have 6.7 million gallons a day for that. And there's continued expansions that'll take place as we continue to update the master plans for that. So we do have capacity. At one time, we did some upsizing of the pipeline from Wilsonville to Sherwood to be able to accommodate other partners that may want to join in that. We don't know the fate of that, but at the time, there was an interest to upsize that pipe to be able to sell water to other municipalities.
Okay.
So we continue to make...
None of the cities have money around us, but I'm just wondering again. Okay.
It's a, yeah. It is fair. Their project is an expensive project, so, but yeah, they are supporting the communities of Beaverton, Tigard, Hillsborough.
Our water rates are high, you should go look at theirs. I do have a question. The Tualatin Sherwood Road County conflict improvements, is that to accommodate all the construction going on 12 Sherwood?
Yeah, so if we have a fire hydrant in the way of an ADA ramp, then we're on the hook to relocate that. If there are some storm improvements that need to be made, then we're obligated to relocate our utility outside of the conflict.
It's probably an ignorant question, and I apologize in advance, but the road improvements, a county project, wouldn't they pay for any conflicts that we have with our current infrastructure?
We're in their right of way, so it's no different than if a utility was in our right of way and we made improvements, then we'd make that utility relocate at their expense. If we were within an easement, that would be different, but it's in their right of way.
We tried.
Good. We're done.
Materials and services can fluctuate in the water operations just because the cost of water. That rate is just to cover the expense there at the water treatment plant that we share with Wilsonville. Each August of the year, there's an accounting matrix where there's a true-up to determine whether we overspent or overpaid or underpaid. I can't remember a year that it's been underpaid. I think we always overpay. So usually it's a few $100,000 is what we get handed back to us at the end of the year, around August, September.
And is this the fund that is a 2% increase? And then what's the law?
I'm sorry?
You can only increase it by how much?
2% for residential, and then
That's
we
the
are,
max.
and then we are raising commercial a different rate.
So our financial plan for our water fund is 2%, residential 3%. And we do that every 3 or 4 years. We look at the water financials, so.
Yeah, that's where I was cutting, because when I was first on the budget committee in 2020, I know it was like a big issue because you could only increase it by a certain cap, but costs were going up, and I think the bond helped that. Are we still like kicking the can down the road in like 20 years, or is that bond help like even things out?
I don't believe we have a bond.
Oh, we did something. There was a refinance.
Well, it could, a loan.
refinance.
We
It was
could
a
have.
refinance.
There could be a loan, but a bond. We don't have a bond.
Yeah, we did a refinance of one of our debt agreements, not extending the term, but we saved about $2.8 million, $2.7 million in interest over the next 10, 12 years that was left on that bond. So we just refinanced to current.
So I guess my question is the 2% still going to be okay for the long term, like in like 10, 15, 20 years increase? Like or is there going to be like a time in like 10 years that we're going to have an issue with water rates?
Yeah, I can tell you from a financial aspect that 2% cap hurts the water fund. I know it's up to the voters. The voters approved it, but just coming from the financial side of things, costs are not just increasing 2%. They're going up significantly higher, like we've already talked about in like the general fund. So.
To be fair, to say for the water fund, we have a lot of runway left. But like our wastewater fund is in a completely different situation.
Yeah. Yep.
And for clarity, that 2% cap is in the city charter, correct? Okay, got it.
And it would have to be
Voted.
by the people
Yeah.
to change the charter.
Yep.
We could either vote to change the charter, or we could vote on any one raise, right? We could put to the voters, like, we want to raise it 3% this year. We could vote on that without changing the charter. Is that right?
I believe so. I'd look for Sebastian to answer that one.
Something we can look into.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not important for today.
But it will be.
There's been some rumors around town that we raided the water fund to pay for the bridge, and David, you can give the details. We had a choice. We could have taken a loan out from banks and used TIF revenue from our URA to pay that back.
yourself
from
back.
our water fund, which is healthy, and pay ourselves that interest. Is that a correct statement?
That's a correct statement. It was just interfund loan. Lots of agencies use this. It's going to be 100% paid back, so we did not raid the water fund. The water fund will be made 100% whole.
With interest.
With interest. They are paying interest expense on it as well, so that water fund will be made whole. And by doing it internally too, you're not paying the underwriter fees, which when you look at all the closing costs, could be anywhere between $250,000 to $400,000.
Right.
So,
And that gets paid back with TIF revenue from
Yep.
our URA, which is outperforming.
we had 50% growth from last year to this current fiscal year in assessed value, 50% growth, which
And just to answer the next question, I know someone watching in the public is, we can't use that money for the general fund.
Correct.
Yeah, that's segregating money under state law.
Yep.
And for
And tell
anybody,
them why you can't. It's state law?
It's state law.
Yeah.
I think I dropped down.
Originally, those things were put in place because you pay your water bill and you pay water SDCs, and that state law guarantees those funds get used for water stuff. Same for parks, same for sewer. So that's kind of the genesis of this law.
And the way
Yep, you did.
Oh yeah, and the way the interfund loan is set up, because this is a capital, the bridge is a capital asset, is paid back within 10 years, which falls in line too. Within about 10 years, potentially there could be another upgrade down at the Willamette facility, the treatment facility. So
So we program the loan so that we're still protecting our future capital projects.
future capital projects in the water fund, yes.
and just for some that are watching, because I know several of us have gotten questions from the community that a private digital sign in town doesn't always have accurate information on it about our water fund.
You know a lot about the circus.
This is another fund that we'll be using to help offset a little bit of the general fund dollars with our inspection crews, engineering staff as well. Any questions on water operations? Continue on with water capital. We've been making some improvements to the water treatment plant the last few years. We do have one item that has been a long delay, was transformer for that project. That's to be installed this fall, and that'll complete out that. It was a 5 million gallon expansion. We're third owners of that, so we gained another 1.7 million gallons capacity out of the water treatment plant. We're hoping that this year will be the completion of the conflicts with Taunton, Sherwood Road, and the County Road project. So,
Do you mean calendar year, or do you mean budgetary year?
this fiscal year. So
Fiscal year,
at least
all
the
right.
improvements that are
The only year that
required of us. So
I know, I want to get it on the record that construction will be done shortly.
Or else?
It's a county project, so we can't hold it.
And then we do have a project that, it's the water treatment plant. There is some resiliency improvements, some HVAC improvements to the water pump station and the water equalization basin, ozone and chemical. That was identified during the upgrades, and then it was rolled over to the next 2-year budget for us for those improvements that are necessary to protect the investment out there.
Rich, what's our total capacity allocated to Sherwood now at the plant?
6.7 million gallons a day, as far as our ownership in the treatment plant.
Right, and in the intake facility, we have 9.7.
9.7, yes.
That's our capacity from that facility.
Right.
Then our pipe can handle.
I believe it's over, is it 26 million gallons? 20
So
million gallons?
our partnerships with Wilsonville that we own with them, it goes all between 20 and 26, and once you get to Two's Road, this way is probably about 40 gallons, 40 million gallons a day we can get through there. So that's where we oversize what Rich was talking about. that we never have to come back and shut the line down, and somebody can take off at Murdoch if they needed to. So that's where that's at. And I think, Councilor Giles, that your question was if we have enough water for Sherwood West. With our partnerships with the plant, we feel we have enough water to last till 2067, and then there needs to be an upgrade in the intake at the Willamette treatment plant. At that time, there'll be another intake for everybody, and we'll stay off from that plant. So that's how that would work.
You said 2067?
Yeah.
Correct, yeah.
Yep.
We have 20, we have,
I hope so.
I'm happy.
So I guess when we say,
well, just,
Go ahead.
another important component of that is we have, our water rights at that facility on the intake is 20 million gallons a day. So we have, lots of future capacity. Yeah.
100 years worth
Yeah.
plus.
Assuming we do the upgrades, yeah.
We're averaging like 2 million a day, is that?
Right now, that's our probably our average, yeah.
Okay.
And we're peaking up around 4.5, somewhere in there.
It'd be great to wheel some water to another city.
I know, that's what I'm thinking, like, I don't know who Newburgh gets their water from, or some of these others where we can say, hey,
It's nice Sherwood water.
We have our own plant.
oh, do you?
Yeah.
Is it as good?
To build a new one, so.
Oh, there we go.
you know.
Hey, here we go, all right.
Doesn't Newburgh have a
sense
half
when you
a
look at a
city
map.
on one water and half a city on another water?
No.
Yeah,
Didn't you
it's-
used to have a half a city on one water and half a city on the other water because it tasted funny at the south end?
That I don't know. I know that our water plant is 70 years old.
Okay, well,
So
we will
it's-
give you a broadband water deal.
Here we go.
Well, when Portland, Tigard gets most of their water from the Portland system.
Yeah.
Tualatin has a partnership with Lake Oswego.
Tualatin is with Portland,
With
plus they
Portland.
have some of their other
Yeah,
sites.
yes, ours.
And then Tigard is partnered with.
Yeah, so there's,
And
Interesting.
boy, you don't want to read about all the stuff going on with Portland and their water.
But if they're having financial problems and we can offer a better price, it might be worth looking at it, but
Extending a bit.
extending a bit, yeah. We don't need a lot,
we
right?
already have a pipe connecting us to Tualatin.
Yeah. Tualatin City Council,
They just have.
reach out.
They got to change the
Let's do
term.
lunch.
Well, we should.
Conversation,
Yeah,
not for the budget committee.
and Newburgh, yeah.
We're not going to make it home. We're not getting done tonight, Kim. Sorry.
The expenditures are just reflective of the capital projects and then some staff time to be able to attend meetings and also for the inspections of the water capital.
Can I just point out one big, huge positive? Why other cities in the state are struggling to find money for water projects and sewer projects because we set this fund up so well, 20 years ago. We just did a major plan upgrade and didn't have to ask our constituents for $1. So that's
Wow.
huge.
That is huge.
It's unheard of.
Yeah.
It's pretty darn rare nowadays.
Doesn't happen.
Yeah, it just speaks to having the SDCs that are coming for those improvements, where growth is
Staff
being for
that's
them.
paying attention to that.
Any other questions on water capital? Sanitary fund? Again, we want to make sure the pipes are flowing, so we do a lot of preventive maintenance out there. Those performance standards are set by Clean Water Services, and we've been able to meet those performance measures. And one note is that backups and overflows, 0 is a good number for us there.
What is FOG?
Fat, oil, and grease, so that's another program that we have to ensure that the customers contributing fog to the sewer systems are collecting that on site and then hauling that off. It helps maintain our functionality of the pipes.
Can I just add something too on the lobbying front? So we're actively lobbying our federal team for a couple $1 million in earmarks to repair aging sewer infrastructure in downtown. And we're also working with the state to get, fingers crossed, about $4 million for the Berkman
You're ahead.
trunk line.
That's capital.
Oh, well,
We're in operation.
Yeah. It's all right, we can be on Capitol.
I'll see.
We'll be there in a minute.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tim.
Operations.
Yes, capital, I just want to mention that, again, there's a small amount of capital outlay for the sanitary, but that is just for raising manholes and whatnot associated with Sherwood Road conflicts that we have there. Material services remain constant for the utility. Sanitary capital, as Mayor mentioned, we're seeking some funding for some projects that we have coming up. The two projects of significance are the Rock Creek upsizing Phase 2 project that will take it from 12 Sherwood Road up to Oregon Street. That is a city-managed clean water services funded project. So other than some interties that we'll have to existing city manholes off that trunk line, will be still a fair amount of expense, but we won't be paying for a large portion of that project. Then Brookman Sanitary Sewer Line, that takes it from the Brookman subdivision, Middlebrook area, and then that'll wrap that around out to the high school, the new high school out up Elward Road. So that is a jointly funded project. Our costs are around $5 million. Overall, in 2 years, we'll have a payment of about $1.9 million for the first section of that line, and then Clean Water Services will collect SDCs over time to recoup the rest of that project cost. I don't have anything to report to the expenses unless there's questions. Stormwater Fund. Again, this is a lot of programs that we do in this fund are to meet performance measures clean water services. So we do a lot of cleaning, a lot of inlet cleaning, a lot of TVing over sewer lines to make sure that the water is flowing. A lot of, and then we clean it every year in the fall so that debris doesn't go out to the stream corridor.
Question, Rich, on this. On the clean water services piece, there's a pass-through component on our city services bill where for stormwater and for sewer, it goes to clean water services, correct?
Correct.
Do they, under our IGA, do we get to charge an administrative fee to basically handle the billing for their stuff?
That may be baked into the amount that we collect.
Sources of revenue.
Yeah. So I know that
We might claw back a bit of what we give them.
I believe there's some discussion on the IGAs and that accounting matrix on what services that we provide to clean water services and making sure that we're capturing those costs to bill for them.
So wait a minute, stop. Would that be in addition to what people are seeing on their bill, or would that be clawed back from clean water services?
Our bill includes our charges, local charges, and then also the charges for clean water services.
It wouldn't raise the fee that the
It'd just be
customer pays.
It'd be a percentage that we take from or keep from clean water services.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah.
Clawback is keep from clean water services.
What does LIDA stand for?
It's a LIDA facility, so it's a stormwater treatment, low impact development. It's more of a swale. You'll see them along Edie Road, there by the Ackerley or Police Department on the south side. Those are LIDA facilities. It's where they can't put in big storm ponds. So
Oh,
provide
so
some
the the
stormwater
weird
treatment.
thing next to the strip, next to the sidewalk kind of thing.
yes.
Hate those. So ugly. People throw garbage in them all the time too.
And
Following them.
and we get to pick up the garbage. So yes, we clean those. So again, a performance matrix associated with maintaining our storm system. This is another utility that will be supporting some of our engineering staff as they inspect our utilities out there through new development or maintain and support some of our capital projects. Any questions on storm operations? This is also how we fund our street sweeping that take place on a monthly basis.
Favorite Monday, Tuesday?
Is that when you are?
Cars are outside.
Shouldn't we
Glad to
be
hear.
able to find people who leave their cars on the street?
That's your favorite.
Good luck.
He knows I love me.
We can, if they leave them too long.
Yeah.
I like some
Stormwater.
leaf, I like leaf pickup.
If it's a day that the street sweeper's supposed to come through and they haven't read.
No, we can't.
We try to provide a schedule just so there are customers out there that remove their cars from the street, park in their driveway so that their portion of the street is clean.
Good customers.
Except for my kid, no matter how many times I tell him.
Your kids sit in
Where do you see the schedule? I
I
don't
don't
know
know
when
what's
they're coming.
First Monday or Tuesday of the month.
So
Yeah, there's a schedule.
It's posted on Facebook.
on our interactive maps,
Yeah, I don't go on Facebook.
in the city, you'll be able to see a schedule there.
All right, I'll find it.
Yeah.
Hopefully the new website.
I
will
just
be able
like
to
hear them
alert
come by and then I run out there and move my daughter's car.
Do you know anyone on city?
I run out and blow
I
my
might.
leaves.
I might.
That's
Your money's over there.
Hey, that's what this increase is right here. Brian's leaves. That's a whole budget line item.
I mean, taking advantage of the service too.
So we are
I
hoping, this year and next year, and we are hoping to complete some projects that have been on the schedule for quite a while. One of them has been Glen Eagle Drive. That's a regional storm facility that we're installing. We started this year, complete that next year. And then the Second and Park stormwater facility rehab, that's again a project that we've had on the books for a while, but we're moving those forward for completion. So that's a functioning facility to treat the stormwater. And we continue to make improvements to various swales in the Woodhaven area.
What's the Cedar Creek Trail crossing of Highway 99 in relation to stormwater?
Yeah, that's the FEMA mapping that we have, floodplain
Oh, the
mapping that
mapping.
we have.
Got it.
Yeah.
Sorry, it took me a minute.
I think we didn't fund this project.
Hey,
Research,
hey,
yeah.
Brian, City of Portland will write a citation if you leave your car
Well, good.
on the
Well,
street on pickup day or at sweep day.
you're right. That's everything going on now. I hear
Some revenue opportunity.
Revenue.
Start a coyote court first.
I'm sure that won't be
My neighbors take
So-
care of it.
controversial at all, yeah.
So I've heard that part of the reason we do the leaf pickup is because it saves us time and energy on keeping our stormwater drains clean. Is that?
That is
accurate?
correct, yeah.
Yeah.
It reduces flooding. Yeah.
Plus it keeps us beautiful.
And our surrounding cities are a little jealous of our leaf pickup.
Yes, they are.
Didn't we used to rent our equipment to one other city to do, and then they bought their own equipment? Was Tigert the one that we rented to for a while?
That's not sounding familiar.
At one point.
There are other utilities that use the same equipment that we do. Clean,
Outsource it. Don't
Yeah.
bought our own truck.
street sweeping, we used to outsource street sweeping for a while. We brought that in-house. When we went to the automatic meter reading, we had staff available to support that program. It was more efficient, cost-effective for us to do that in-house. Zero Services capital outlay just reflects the programs that we're and projects that we're hoping to complete this next biennium. Any questions on storm capital?
Awesome job, Rich.
Thanks, Rich.
Thank you.
I think we've ever asked this many mundane questions in any budget meeting I've been to, so. We're getting all the interesting stuff out this year.
Good evening, Council Budget Committee. Brad Crawford, IT Director.
How you doing, Brad?
Doing well. Been a busy year this year in broadband. In addition to fiber to the home, we've been working a lot on grants this past year. So finished a $1.6 million project about 6-9 months ago extending out into the rural areas of Sherwood, out into King City, and then down into Wilsonville. Then also we're awarded a $1 million grant for kind of in a similar area, and then a $9 million BDP, Broadband Deployment Program grant through the state of Oregon. That area comprises of everything kind of south of Sherwood to Wilsonville Road, and then east of Newburgh. So basically everything between Newburgh, Sherwood, and Wilsonville, the rural area. So that project's been bid out, and quickly are going to start construction on that. Fiber to the home, we continue to see high customer satisfaction rates. We get lots of praise for our service, and that goes directly to staff. Internet is internet at the end of the day. Having high quality internet is good, and we have great staff that help build reliable connections. But from the crews out on the street, installing a very disruptive service in your neighborhood to dig up the front yard and to put equipment in your neighborhood is very disruptive, and we continue to see great take rates even after we leave those neighborhoods, which is a testament to the good work the staff is doing to make that as least low impact as possible. Even goes to our frontline UB girls who are answering the calls, to my staff who are helping for technical support problems. So big shout out to those folks.
Brian, let me ask you a quick question. You
Yeah.
said technical support.
Mhm.
If you're doing fiber to the home, what's your technical support? Is it just the
Yeah, it's
piece on the side of the house, or what is
No,
it?
it's if you have a problem with your internet connection after you've gotten our service, you call us and we'll help troubleshoot the problem. So it's generally somebody who's having a problem with a television, let's say, or a device that's connected to our router, and it's our helping them walk through that problem.
But you do, let's say Ziply, do you have an indoor,
Yep.
outdoor, and
Kind of, yeah. It's two indoor pieces, but yeah, we have for lack of a better term, an ONT. It's a modem, and then we have a router. So.
So the grants that, or the grants that we got, they cover our expenses plus some, right? To get, and then once those are installed, then our monthly costs cover the support and all
Those
of the
users
other
just become
stuff.
another user of the system, and our team supports them just as they would an in-town customer.
Yeah, and so we would not have gotten those as customers had we not gotten the grants, right?
Most definitely.
likely. It's
We
too
likely
expensive.
couldn't afford the
Yeah.
construction effort. The construction effort would not make a return on investment
Okay.
without the grant money.
in most of these new areas,
Mhm.
are you the only?
In the rural areas, generally it's a DSL service that is out there. Trying to think, most all of them don't have any cable service. It's usually DSL.
Satellite.
Or satellite, yeah.
But you only provide the internet connection. You don't provide, say, HBO, the packages.
We don't
that-
provide any television services or even really telephone services. We do have a provider that we partner with that does provide telephone service, and we offshoot that to them. But we wanted to keep our service as simple as possible, easily to maintain, so just internet. But through all of this, fiber to the home has been going great. I mean, we are now approaching 50% completion of the town. We've continued to see pretty consistent and steady growth. So much so that it's easier to project kind of what revenue is going to look like year over year. Our charts are pretty steady year over years now. Next year is a pretty minimal budget. We're really just trying to put enough in there just to get the project, further along. Doesn't have any major capital expenditures other than the grant expense. So with $9 million, we're going to have $9 million of revenue, but we're also going to have $9 million of expense. So those are shown in this biennium. Yeah, and then no other major expenses other than just operational expenses.
Brett?
Yeah.
Am I reading this right? We only lost 7 customers in 23, 24, and 11 this year?
Yeah, we calculated this as losses, meaning a new customer didn't move into a home. We get a lot of people that move out, but generally we get the new person that comes in. And I think what we calculated that was these are ones that are homes that nobody moved back into.
So these are almost
Or they
all-
moved back in and went with somebody
Somebody else, correct.
So these are almost all move outs. Have we ever had someone leave because because they like Ziply
I-
or Comcast?
I think I can only remember 2 in the time, but that doesn't, I don't see them all either. So our attrition is really, really low when it comes to just, we want to go with somebody else.
Did we lose a major business account?
Nope. Nope.
Amazing.
So,
You and the team are doing
Yeah.
an amazing job.
it is the team. It really is. We've built a group, a solid group from both the construction to the support, and we're finding ways to kind of extend other folks into the broadband operations as well, which is helping. So.
Brad?
Great. Any questions on the expenses?
Great job, Brad.
Good job.
Okay. Want me to move on to state shared revenue?
How far are we going tonight? Or,
We still got time. Okay. I will now open the public hearing on the use of state revenue sharing. The purpose of this hearing is to provide the public with an opportunity to submit testimony concerning the possible uses of state revenue sharing funds for the biennial budget 2025 through 2027. The order of business we will follow in conducting this hearing will be a quick presentation by the city's finance director, receive public testimony, questions from the committee, then the hearing will be closed and no further testimony will be received. Then there will be discussions by the committee. I will now turn it over to David.
yes, thank you, Chair Strode. In order for the city to receive distributions, basically state shared revenue, they are required to hold one public hearing during the budget deliberations and one public hearing during the adopting process, which will be at City Council meeting in June. Up on your screen, if you look at your first slide, it's titled Estimates. This is provided by the League of Oregon Cities. They provide a nice little report, usually in the month of February, that kind of outlines where they feel that the state shared revenues are coming in or what are the future projections. So these are just some information they provided us. Portland State University, they look at our population count, and at December 15th, 2024, it was 20,781, and that's kind of what most of the distribution is based off of, is population count. So when you look at the makeup of the general fund revenue, of course, property taxes are its largest. Why is this coming up as percentages again? I apologize.
Oh, you did that last year too.
Yeah, but on here, it's fine.
Yeah.
So I'll have to get this corrected so the public can actually see this. What's that? Oh. So property taxes, they're the largest source of revenue, followed by franchise fees. But intergovernmental revenue is where this money, where the state shared revenue money gets recorded. So if you go to your next slide, total state shared revenue over the biennium, you're looking at a little bit over $1.4 million, which if you're dividing that out, it's declining state shared revenue compared to this current fiscal year. The money is going down. We've talked a little bit about it during the 5-year forecast discussion, where if you look at the liquor tax, that's going down. They're building that big facility. The state's building that big facility that's taken some of the money away from cities, which in the future, it will get back to normal levels. Cigarette taxes is going down. But liquor tax is the major source of revenue over the biennium. Cigarette tax, you're looking at a little over $24,000, which is not much money. Marijuana tax, we have the one facility locally. That's averaging about $110,000 to $115,000 a year. So, yeah, state shared revenue is declining. And then the other money we receive is state shared revenue for street operations, which Katie, you brought up in the street ops fund. Is that a lot of the state shared revenue? Yeah. We got the vehicle taxes, which make up about $3.4 million for the biennium, followed by the gas tax allocation of about almost $140,000, so just shy of $70,000 a year. So what can you use state shared revenue for? Well, in the general fund, it's combined with all other non-restricted funds, except for there's a portion, of course, marijuana tax, which is for public safety. And they can support activities, as I just mentioned, public safety, administration, community services, facilities, community development. Street operations, a little more restrictive. They have to be used for expenses related to streets such as paving, streetscape maintenance, trees, kind of the slurry seal program we have here at the city. So it's a little more restrictive, so you've got to use it for streets.
David, a question in the forecast. In the 5-year forecast, we didn't forecast any changes in the gas tax rates.
No, the gas tax is recorded in the street operations separate from the 5-year forecast in the general fund. Yeah.
But the only reason I mention that is in the transportation package in Salem, there's talk of increasing the gas tax under the distribution formula. That could impact
Oh, okay.
us in the future.
Negative or positive?
Positively, yeah.
Isn't there also an EV tax in that?
Not in the current PC.
Well, that was a federal one, right?
Okay.
So that kind of ends my presentation, and kind of turn back the chair to see if there's any public comment.
Really quick, actually, on you said that the revenues for the shared incomes are decreasing. Is that because people are drinking less and smoking less, or is it?
Smoking's going down there. I think there's a high, I don't know, I'm not a smoker, but I think there's a pretty significant tax per carton or
Right,
per
no, I'm
box.
just wondering,
But like for the,
it wasn't a change in formula,
No.
it's a change in behavior.
there's a little bit of changer a little bit of change in the liquor tax, because originally, I don't have the exact figures, I think they thought that facility was going to cost $65 million, then it came out to be about $150 million, so.
So when the state agreed, when the state decided to build that new facility, they decided to take it out of the city's portion of the liquor tax. To David's point, the costs have gone way up.
Yeah.
So, vote on those things, do we? No.
Okay, David, were there any comments or testimonies?
I have not received any. Any comments or testimony from the public? You hear it? No.
Okay, I will close the public hearing on the state revenue sharing, and I will now open the floor to discussion among the committee.
David, do you have a cheat sheet? Did you bring a cheat sheet?
Yeah, I actually set it over, but I got another one.
Somebody has it, okay.
Someone wants to read a motion.
Yeah, so we're looking for a motion, right, to approve the state shared revenues as presented?
Accept them.
No, it's just basically a discussion for the state
It's just
share.
a discussion? Okay.
Yeah. If there's any discussion, then we move on to approval of the city budget.
Did you leave it on my desk?
Yeah.
Oh, give it to Ray. Give it to somebody.
But you keep going. This is something totally separate, so.
Okay. Do we have any discussion on the state revenue sharing? Okay. If not, then let's move on to general discussion of the budget. And I'll open the floor to the committee.
And I do have a few things I'd like to discuss before we go through the adopting process. Or one of you could read it if we get to that point. So.
Did you want to, before we have discussion on the budget, you want some things
Sure,
to say?
yeah. So I know there was discussion during the 5-year forecast. I'd like to add in the budget message underneath the 5-year forecast, a little bit of clarification for anyone who picks this up. If you can recall from the 5-year forecast presentation, I don't want to call it operating contingents or reserves. It should be more, what does the committee think about operating contingency? Or,
I just think it needs to be front and centered and not buried as a note underneath a chart. Because when people see it here or see the word reserve, they think we're saving, it's unspent money, we don't need it, which is far from the truth. It needs to be loud and clear right up front in the budget message. Somewhere in there that part of that reserve is a true reserve, and part of it is it protects our cash flow until property taxes come in. I don't even like the word contingency because it implies it's there in case of something that we don't know is coming. But we know what's coming. We have to pay salaries until property taxes start flowing in November, December.
yeah.
So
what's the word?
Operational cash flow?
Yeah, cash float or float loan or, I don't know. Cash. Let's see, let's ask Chat GPT.
You know, they're now taking minutes for different.
I mean, basically, there's a discretionary portion and a non-discretionary portion. So maybe that's,
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, because the capital outlay you could call discretionary, and the part that we need to pay the bills, non-discretionary.
Right.
Which brings me to my next point. Can we all turn to page 127 of the budget book? If you look at the bottom of page 127 where it talks about the 20%, should we change that verbiage around there too? Because right now it says an unrestricted fund balance of at least 20%. Should we mirror that language to kind of tie into the language we're going to use?
Mirror it, maybe put some explanatory in there that 20% covers cash flow, what.
Yeah.
Just so it's clear.
Is this our financial policy?
Yes.
Does this go through budget or does this go through council?
Or are we gonna make a recommendation?
Well, I don't know how, I would have to look it up how it was originally approved. This was before my time on who, or does it just get approved on a yearly basis through the budget committee?
Can't remember. So,
Yeah.
yeah, anything would come to council anyways, whatever's recommended.
Okay.
Yeah, having that explained in some capacity is going to be very, very important.
Yeah. So those are two items. Next item, I know there was a little bit of discussion, more Scribner errors. On the performance measures, I know it might have been a little confusing. We added all those 2 years together. We combined them. I know the chief would like those 60 officers, but that's not possible. Would you like me to clean up a little bit of those performance measures I could either split all of them out by 2 years, or it's just the ones that were, for example, like the police department where
Well, if you're gonna do some.
I think they should all be done.
all be done. Okay.
Or we just wait till next budget.
If it's an annual metric, it's list the annual number, but if it's a dollar amount, it's a 2-year budget, so you list the
Just-
full amount, yeah.
Okay.
But most of the dollar ones that they had split by year already.
Yeah.
That's true.
So I could split out all the performance metrics by both years. So, okay.
So if anybody's interested, ChatGPT suggests interim fund or bridge fund. I don't know.
It's not a fund, though.
No, I know, but but do interim or bridge work between the time a budget ends and the, if we said interim flow account or interim.
It's almost a liability, right?
Technically, no.
But
I
it feels like.
understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah. I'll have to do a little research on
I
that.
like the word
but-
interim, that's good.
We, obviously, we're gonna have a third meeting. We could all chew on that word before we vote on the budget, if we need to make those changes to approve the budget. And come back with suggestions.
Okay. And then there's one final change. I just want to talk to the committee. It was pointed out by Chair Strode because they're going through a biennium budget, and I appreciate that. And Council President Kim Young, you also pointed out it's a little confusing. I'm just going to let's just turn to page 105 since that's one of the closest. So look at how beginning fund balance is reported. That first column, you have 8 million. Second column, you have 4 million. Total 12 million. Under the binding budget, they say you can't add those together. I should just carry over that 8 million should be the total. And the difference gets taken out down below and reserved for future year. It doesn't change any appropriation in the middle of what we're talking about for personnel services or materials and services. It's this adjustment at the top of the line, at the bottom line I have to make, because it is, Councilor Young, you talked about it, looks like we have all this money, when
Like,
actually
yeah,
we don't.
I caught it in the investment fund, and like I said, 4 million and 3 million and 7 million, which to me looks like we have 7 million coming,
Yeah.
flowing in as a beginning balance, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna.
So when I bring this in front of City Council and when we go to approve, there's just a few amendments I'm gonna make between all these funds where it's just changing that top line, bottom line, not anything in the middle that we've been discussing up here. It's not gonna change any kind of appropriation, anything like that. It's just some little nuance. And Katie, actually, when she was talking to other cities, she said that's one thing that trips up everyone when they move to a binding budget, because as an accountant, 1 + 1 should equal 2, not 1 + 1 = 1. We're used to everything has to tick and tie, but here in this situation, it doesn't tick and tie.
Would it be easiest to have those changes written out into a motion form, or are you gonna bring us back a revised budget?
No, I can write this up in a motion form, like
Yeah.
everything we just talked about, so you can say as amended, just so when I bring this in front of City Council that everything will be pretty clean.
Okay.
I take ownership in that. I'm just gonna add them all together. Everything has to tick and tie and foot, so.
First time, it's our first 2-year budget.
Yeah.
We've done great.
It was an experience, I can tell you that, so. But yeah, if we wanna, it's not my call, I'll go home, sit and chew on this, and I'll come back when we go to approve it, next meeting, with all the amended language that we can chat about too.
I mean, we have to come back anyway because we still have the URA budget and everything. We're not gonna get done tonight, so I would just rather see it in a week before we vote on it.
Yeah, people can,
6 o'clock hours.
Oh, GFOA has a standard for the terminology.
What is it?
There's, of the fund balance, there's committed fund balance, assigned fund balance, and reserves.
Yep.
Yes, we got it.
We got it now, yeah.
Yeah.
So committed would be the cash flow.
Yeah.
Good call.
Committed would be the cash flow. Is that right?
Committed, I like that.
So committed would be the cash flow piece.
Yeah.
Assigned would be the capital outlay, and reserves would be, in this case, nothing, but in theory, we could have actual reserves.
And there's certain restrictions in the fund balance and GASB, it was under GASB 54, where in order to commit certain funds, I'll have to bring a resolution in front of City Council, because I think I'd have to look at the verbiage. Committed funds only can be committed by City Council and uncommitted by City Council, meaning no other folks can touch that money unless City Council's votes a majority says, yes, we're going to unrestrict that money. Or
Look into
uncommitted.
that and tell us if it's terms we can use, otherwise we'll look up for an acronym, or what do you call it when it's committed and there's another word that means the same thing? Synonym.
Yeah.
And if anybody wants to leave their budget books here, I'll be more than happy to take them up to my office and bring them down for you.
If we have thoughts or ideas or suggestions in between meetings, we just send you an email.
Shoot me an email. Yep. Yeah, you got to officially adjourn the meeting.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Okay, we're